It is the pre-show, everyone, for today's N10-008 Network Plus Study Group. Hey, chat room, let's pop out the chat. Pop out the chat. Pop out the chat. There we go. And I need to have stream health up. I was having a problem earlier with my streaming system not seeing the internet. And I don't know if it was really not seeing the internet or if the internet was not there, which is entirely possible in my world. So let's check a few things here. We are recording down here. That looks really good. We are recording on the internet. That's this big one that says on air. When the on air starts flashing, that's when things aren't working. Right now, on air is solid. Everything looks great. See, it all comes together, doesn't it? We got Network Plus this week. Next week is Security Plus Study Group. Haven't written the questions for that one yet, but I'm looking forward to it. Let's put all of this. Hey, chat room. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. There's a lot going on there. Oh, we got lots of folks checking in. We got St. Vincent here. Hey, Mal, good to see you again. Thanks for being here. We've got North Carolina. We got Bradenton, Florida. All of us Floridians are checking in. Hey, Florida. Bradenton, you must have got a little rain there a few weeks ago, right? That was a thing. That was not so great. We got Kuwait and NYC, which I'm interpreting to be New York City. Northern Virginia, D.C., Orlando. Hey, Orlando, good to see you. I was just in Orlando yesterday, but now I'm back. Hello, Houston and Huntington, West Virginia. Well, Washington State is here. San Antonio, Texas. There's Dublin, Ireland. Welcome. Hello, London and Rocket City. Rocket City. I haven't been there in a while. I need to get back to the big city. Hey, Queens. Richmond, Texas. Everybody's checking in. Indianapolis checked in. Hey, Hawaii. Toronto. Belfast is here. A lot of Ireland checking in. How about that? Hello, Doylestown, PA. Chattanooga, TN. There's Tampa. Hey, Tampa. San Diego. St. Louis, Mo. Thanks for being here. All right, let's check cameras. Those are looking pretty good. We got questions. This is the right presentation. It does have the right answers in it. Did a little bit of QA this time. Let's not go crazy. Just a little bit. Just a wee bit of QA. So that part's done. We could probably clean up our mess. I don't think you get to see much of that anyway. Although I could use something for, appear to have a speck of my spectacles. Wow, Super Chat's starting up already. And now I can't see who did it. Let's see what's going on. The Super Chat's here. Hey, Austin, thank you for the $2 Super Chat. Thank you for being here. That's great. Did you experience some jitter? That could have happened. That's possible. But remember, everything you're seeing is being sent to you directly from YouTube. I send YouTube one video stream, and then they crunch it up, do things with it. They put it in different types of streams for you, and then they send it to you. So what you're seeing is not directly from me, but it's pretty close. Pretty close to have that there. So we're just working through and trying to figure out 3.5 minutes to go. How about those layer 3 switches? I'm guessing they don't exist, so it's difficult to know how those layer 3 switches are doing. That's sort of the running gag for those of you that haven't been here before. And there's no such thing as a layer 3 switch. Well, there sort of is, but really there isn't. We know. Those of us that have worked through it, we understand what we're talking about. The problem, of course, is that I literally have every switch I have is a layer 3 switch. So that's the challenge. Yeah, it's difficult. I want to go faster speeds, but the faster these go, the more fans they need. And for video work, fans aren't good. Fans not very good at all. So I've been working on trying to get 10 gig running consistently for more devices in my studio, But all that really means is that I have to buy these lower end 10 gig switches that don't have a fan in them and have a limited number of interfaces. So it's neither here nor there, really. It's just the problems you have to deal with when you're working. You don't just need the interface, but you need it to be a quiet interface. If we could have quiet 10 gig, and there are increasingly more 10 gig options available on the market that are passively cooled, that don't have a fan inside of them, and I'm all on board for that. That's what I wish I had. So that's just how it works. All right, we need I need my yellow thing working. Is it work? Yes. Got that now running on the screen. What else have I missed? I'm surely I've missed something. Surely there's something I forgot. Well, we'll find out soon, won't we? Because I have 1.5 minutes before we get started. So we will know shortly what exactly I have not done correct. There's got to be something. We've got Fakir in the chat room with the $2 Canadian super chat. Thank you. No message, no nothing to tell the world about. Just happy to share the love. Thank you so much for the super chat. We've got to get that. And by the way, for those of you watching, super chats are appreciated. They are not necessary, but don't feel like you have to do one. But I sure appreciate it when folks do. So thank you for that. Plus, it's a good way if you wanted to get my attention. As I've mentioned in earlier study groups, I'm very coin operated. So you just put the coin in and suddenly I operate. It's a very common thing. Let's see if I have nowhere to put this phone. We'll put the phone right there in the middle. Won't go anywhere now. Can't check it now. You're watching me. We've got 30 seconds. It's about time to get Keynote running. Hello, Keynote. Give me a green light. Green light, please. Green light, play button. But you have to, Austin's right. You have to do super chats. What am I thinking? What was I saying? Of course you have to do super chats. It's nice to do a free stream. And that's my point. So, but I appreciate it. Thanks, Austin, for the $2 super chat. I appreciate that. I think we've got everything pretty much ready to go. It's time to do a study group. Let's see if I can get some of this going. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the October 2022 Professor Messer N10-008 Network Plus Study Group. This is our monthly Network Plus Study Group where I ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives, and then you're able to answer them online if you happen to be here live. If you are watching this on a replay, though, keep watching. There's plenty that we will be able to go through. But if you are here live, we would love it if you were able to participate interactively as I ask these questions. The way that you do that is to pop open a new browser window and go to this URL, this professormesser.com/QA. If you do that, there's a question waiting for you on the screen right now. If you would like to use an app to do this, some of you are more inclined to do this on your mobile device or any of your mobile tablets. You could do that, of course, by downloading the Socrative student app. Socrative is the service we use to provide that interactive functionality. So it's an app from them. You want the student flavor of their app. You don't want the teacher flavor. That's the one that I would download. But you would download the student app from Socrative. If you do that, it will ask you for a room name. And the room name is all one word, Professor Messer, PROFESSOR Make sure you spell it right, or you won't be able to see any questions in there. If you do all of those things, there will be a question waiting for you. That question asks, a network administrator has enabled UDP 514 on a firewall. Which of the following is allowed through the firewall? Is it encrypted terminal communication, voice call signaling, logs from switches and routers, remote control of a desktop, or secure directory access? Now, if you think you know the answer, our standing rule is no answers in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. Instead, you want to follow the link that is on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. You follow that link, and you're able to lock in your answer. We would love you to go over and lock in your answer and see what you think. We're going to come back to that question in just a moment. Thanks for being here. As I mentioned, we do one of these live streams every month, and we love doing them. It's great to have everybody in one place. We can ask a lot of great questions. And in fact, this first hour, I'm asking you questions. Stick around for the second hour where you can ask me questions. So if there's anything you would like to know about, something you would like to get more information on, that's a great time to start asking. We're not here doing a live stream. You can catch us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe if you have not already. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube. There's also a weekly Network Plus pop quiz question that I post to Twitter, post to Instagram, and I send out via email. You can find out those at ProfessorMesser.com/Twitter and ProfessorMesser.com/Instagram. Those two, it's the same question, but one is on Twitter with just text. Instagram has the pretty picture. So find the one that you'd like the best. It doesn't matter because they are exactly the same. You will have no problem finding what you need. Just type in ProfessorMesser.com/ the name of the service you would like to find it on, and you'll probably do a pretty good job. Those of you on LinkedIn, for example, go to ProfessorMesser.com/LinkedIn for that page. I also want to let you know about timing, which is very important when you're trying to do scheduling for a certification exam, because these exams don't last forever. They don't stick around. There's different versions, and it's updated throughout the years. The N10-008 is the exam code for the current version of the exam. It was released on September the 15th of 2021, and we estimate that this exam will retire somewhere around March of 2025. It's a best guess, but that's a pretty good guess. So if you're currently working towards this certification, we're here in October of 2022, you've got plenty of time. So you don't have to worry about the exam going away anytime soon. This exam, the N10-008, is the latest version. Make sure you grab those exam objectives. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/objectives. Of course, we have an entire training course all available for you to watch online for free. There's no registration. There's no paywall. There's nothing extra you have to do to gain access to every minute of our training course. Simply go to YouTube or go to the Professor Messer website, and you simply click on the videos, and you can watch anything you'd like. I don't have to know anything about you. I don't have to monitor or do anything that you happen to be doing. You simply go to that site, click the button, and you're watching and learning immediately. That's the way it should be in my mind. There are a number of you that would like offline versions of these, and I certainly have those available as part of my Success Bundle, where you can download all the videos, all of the video and audio MP3 format for those of you that would rather have just the audio on your mobile device. I have course notes and exam hacks ebook. You get exclusive access to Q&A in these live study groups, and there's more there. You can find out more information on the Success Bundle by visiting ProfessorMesser.com/netsuccess. We've also got this live stream available for you to watch immediately afterwards. It just becomes available on YouTube without me having to push any buttons or do anything extra. But I also make an audio-only version of this on a replay, and I publish it in podcast format. You can find all of the correct links for downloading that and enabling it in your podcast listening program by going to ProfessorMesser.com/podcast. And that applies to my A+, my Network Plus, and my Security Plus study groups. Everything's there at ProfessorMesser.com/podcast. If you go over to YouTube, you'll notice about a day afterwards, somehow, like magic, the fairies have arrived and they have put timestamps in every bit of every live stream video that we do. This is no small feat, of course. Someone has to go through and watch all of these and put the timestamps in. That person, the fairy, the magic entity that does this is my marketing manager, Lori. She does an amazing job at putting these in here. Hi, Lori. She's watching this at 2x speed. She's watching the chat go by on the replay. So make sure you tell Lori how much you appreciate her doing that. It's a great way to find exactly what you're looking for in our live stream videos. Hopefully that can help you as well. When we aren't here doing a live stream, we're usually in our chat room. You can go to our chat by visiting ProfessorMesser.com/Discord. You don't need a Discord invite or anything special. Just go to ProfessorMesser.com/Discord, and that will get you there. We're always in there doing something, asking about questions. People will comment back and forth. If you're in the middle of your studies and you'd like to talk with others about what they are seeing and maybe bounce some questions off of them, you'll find it at ProfessorMesser.com/Discord. I'll also let you know that eventually you will need to take your Network Plus exam. And I will also tell you that you do not want to go to the Pearson VUE website or the CompTIA website and pay full price to take your exam. You want to get a discount on that voucher. These are the same vouchers you would get by going to CompTIA directly, but you can get them on my website at an automatically discounted rate. You don't need a coupon code. You don't need a special plugin in your browser. It's simply discounted by visiting professormesser.com/vouchers. From there, you can buy any of the CompTIA vouchers, but not only do you get these vouchers, which, by the way, are currently only available in U.S. and Canada. Sorry, the other folks who checked in earlier from outside those two countries. U.S., Canada, and the U.S. territories, this would apply to you. Outside of the U.S., well, we're working on that. Hopefully, we can get some discounted vouchers to you as well. If you purchase the vouchers on my site, having a discounted voucher isn't enough. I want to give you more. So you will get a free copy of my CompTIA Exam Hacks ebook. This is an Exam Hacks ebook I wrote to give you some tips on how you can study and tips of things you can do during the exam to earn you more points. And who doesn't want that? So absolutely have a look at the vouchers page. Go to professormesser.com/vouchers, where you not only get a voucher, you get a lot more, and you get it at a discounted price. Never pay full price for your vouchers. Go to professormesser.com/vouchers. Now let's go back to that question we asked earlier, which was about a network administrator enabling UDP 514 on a firewall. Which of the following is allowed through the firewall? Is that encrypted terminal communication, voice call signaling, logs from switches and routers, remote control of a desktop, or secure directory access? So all of you went to the professormesser.com/QA link. You've been able to lock in your answer. Let's see what you think the answer is. 51% of you say it's logs from switches and routers. We have 29% of you that say it's voice call signaling. We also have 11% as secure directory access, and that's the last double. A tie for last place would be 6% with remote control of a desktop and 3% with encrypted terminal communication. Well, the key, and this is a very common key and something you have to think about when you're working through these exams, is you will never get a trivia question on a CompTIA exam. For example, they will not ask you what protocol is associated with UDP 514. They'll just never ask it. You'll never get anything that easy. Instead, they will ask you, for UDP 514, what does this allow you to do? They want to bring in the reality of how you use this technology into the exam. And this is a very good way to do it. I think this question sort of moves towards that particular goal. And so UDP 514, you would have to know, you'd have to do your math, and you have to know, oh, that's syslog. That's what UDP 514 is. And what does syslog do again? That's the real question. That's where you have to do that extra step. Syslog is how you would get log files from switches, routers, firewalls, servers, practically anything else that you would plug into the network can send its log files to a centralized log consolidation server, and they would do that through a standardized protocol called syslog. Syslog is very common to see if you have a SIM. That's a Security and Information Event Manager. This is very important if you are really not just in security, but really in networking in general. Very common for the network team to have a SIM and then the security team to have their own SIM in some cases. Whenever you have these syslogs, it's going to send a lot of log information. Imagine if you had hundreds of routers, thousands of switches, many firewalls spread throughout the organization. You'll need a lot of hard drive space or some type of storage to be able to collect all of those log files in one place. But the way you would get the files there across the network is by using the syslog protocol. It uses UDP 514. And that's why 52% of you say that what is allowed through the firewall? Logs from switches and routers. Obviously not using a next generation firewall if we're still assigning rules based on a port number, but at least it gives you some options. And logs from switches and routers is commonly what you would see running over UDP 514. You would not see encrypted terminal communication like SSH. You would not see voice call signaling like SRTP or well, we don't have other types on the exam. We'll stick with the RTP and the signaling of the of the voice over IP communication. And if you're doing anything with voice over IP, you know what a challenge it is to be able to send the signaling protocols like H323 and SIP. On the Network Plus, I think just SIP is the voice call signaling you have to know. There might still be H323. Somebody can check me on that one. 9% of you said secure directory access like LDAP or secure LDAP. That would not be the case. And then 6% said remote control of a desktop like remote desktop protocol, RDP. That does not use UDP 514. Only one of these uses UDP 514 by default, and that would indeed be syslog, which allows us to send logs from switches, routers, and other devices on the network. 53% of you got that one right. You did a great job with the syslog question in 514. What a good way to start off the study group with a question of a port number. We all love our port numbers, so that maybe got you moving in the right direction, which is good because we have more questions for you. Of course, multiple choice questions are very common on the exam. The question we just had was a multiple choice question where there was a question and the multiple choices to choose from. In fact, if you didn't know what the answer was, you had a 20% chance of getting it right. If there were 4 answers here, you'd have a 25% chance of getting it right. And CompTIA wants you to work a little bit harder than guessing your way through the exam. So at the very beginning of the exam, they don't give you multiple choice questions. They give you anything but multiple choice questions. The first handful of questions on your exam will be what CompTIA calls performance-based questions. Kind of a fancy set of words, but all it really means is that we're going to ask you about information from your exam objectives, but we're going to ask it in a way that isn't multiple choice. So it could be a command prompt. It might be a fill in the blank. It might be a drag and drop question. You might have to match things or put things in a particular order. You just never know what you might face. So at the very beginning of our study groups, I like to give you a performance-based question. And here is your performance-based question of the month. This question asks, match these DNS record types to their descriptions. So I have listed out 4 DNS record types, and I've listed out 6 descriptions. So you'll obviously have some left over at the end for extra credit. If you happen to know the record types that are left over, you might even want to fill in those blanks too. The 4 DNS record types we need to find are TXT, AAAA, NS, and SOA. Those are our 4 record types. TXT, AAAA, NS, SOA. Doesn't even sound right when you say it out loud, but that's what they are, and those are real. So now the 6 different descriptions I have are: identify the FQDN of any name server. Identify the FQDN of an IP address. Install a server with an IPv6 address. Find the FQDN of a mail server. A list of DNS zone details. And lastly, publish a public key for email verification. Those are your 6 descriptions. 4 of these need to be matched to the 4 DNS record types. The other 2 will be just left over. No love from there. So I've now moved this over so that you can lock in your answers, and I can watch as the answers are coming in. These are going a little slower than that first multiple choice based question, which is certainly expected. These questions tend to be a little more involved, but they're asking you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. So that's the important part. While we're waiting for you to answer, I want to thank a number of people in the chat room. Helder in the chat room. First, let me go. Yes, Helder in the chat room with the €4 super chat says, hope to get the best course. I do too. I hope to give you the best course. So we're going to find out here in the next hour or so. You can tell me at the end if it really was. And Fakir in the chat room with the $2 Canadian, again, said, passed my Network Plus recently, got all 3 certs. Shout out to you. Well, shout out back to you. You're the one that actually did the hard work and got the certifications. Congratulations on your Network Plus and indeed all 3 of your CompTIA exams. Congratulations. That's got to feel good to have all of those in there and done. It's always difficult to get through these exams. So it's always good to hear when somebody does make it through all the way to the end. So congratulations, and thank you for everyone. Thank you for those super chats. And I saw that somebody mentioned I need to get on TikTok, which, by the way, is probably not going to happen. Not really probably. It's just not going to happen. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants that. No. I'd have to do something that was completely, well, I don't know. There are things we could do. The problem, though, is when we talk TikTok, we need to move into the Security Plus study group and talk about how bad TikTok is of an app. Just horrible. Security there is remarkably poor. So you probably won't see me over there. I would not want to put you in that particular position. It's awful. Go look for the details. There's plenty of write-ups on the internet. And I'm not sure why it continues to be available to download and use, but there it is, with all of the security issues associated with that horrible application. A good idea, bad execution. It's the way it always works. Or actually, from their perspective, probably great execution, to be able to gather information. You know, if your government is saying, yeah, you can use it, but our government facilities, no, we can't load it. We're not going to load it. That should give you some pause. That should give you an idea of this. Yeah, we'll do a TikToks on how bad TikTok is. Today's TikTok is on another thing that they're watching with it when you're using TikTok that you had no idea. Let's see how we're doing here. Number of you are trying to get these answers in. They're going a little bit slower than I normally would see. This is a challenging one, isn't it? All of these DNS records, in fact, there are more DNS records on the 008 than 007. So DNS, obviously, something that CompTIA feels is very important. And in reality, we know that when the network is having a problem, it's always DNS. That's sort of the mantra of the network administrator. Always DNS, always. And that indeed is our situation here. Is we have a number of records. This is how DNS works. You're literally sitting at a screen looking at a text file. Remarkable how this incredibly important service is one that, from a configuration perspective, pretty easy to use, but also pretty easy to mess up. And that's kind of the problem when working with DNS records. I always tell people, oh, you need to make a DNS change? Don't do that. Unless you really, really, really have to, and then only make the change if you've done plenty of testing, because one minor thing with DNS that you change could have a dramatic effect on people being able to contact your website for days, weeks, and in some cases even months. So you don't want to turn yourself off of the internet. Well, I'll just change this DNS setting. What do you mean nobody can talk to my site anymore? What do you mean it will take months for this to finally go away so that I can finally have people come back to my site? Those are sad stories, but they're real. Don't be in that position. Let's see how you did with this question. The question asked, match these DNS record types to their descriptions. There's a lot of FQDNs in this one. We'll talk a little bit about all of these. So let's start with the first one, TXT. TXT, not surprisingly, stands for text. That's a text type of DNS record where you would put just text information into your DNS server that would allow other people to see this. This initially was implemented with not the same idea of how we use it today, but it's good that it's in there because it became very useful to have this text record there. In the list of those 6 descriptions I had, the one that really fits for the text message is to publish a public key for email verification. And indeed, all of the email anti-spam tends to be really starting its focus with settings that you can configure in your DNS server. You may think email's a different server. That's a different machine. That's not the same device. But it turns out that we can put very valuable information into a DNS server that then helps us protect you against spam coming from our email server. There's more details on this in my video, which is in section 1.6 of my N10-008 course. The video is called DNS Record Types. So you may want to look at that one if you're trying to figure out, how does text have anything to do with email? We'll have a look and you'd be surprised all the things you can do with a text record in DNS. The next record that we wanted to know was AAAA. I'm not stuttering. That's an actual record. It's 4 A's, which is different than 1 A's. If you see a record in a DNS and there are 4 different or 4 separate AAAA right next to it as the record type, then we are using an IPv6 address. This is an address record which specifies an IPv6 address associated with that, and this is a great one to use. The IPv6, I'm not sure why it isn't. If IPv4 is A, wouldn't IPv6 be AAA? But that wouldn't be long enough. Or is it perfect size? Or should we have 6 A's? But that would mean we'd need 4 A's. Well, it just becomes complicated. Just remember, an IPv4 IP address is 1A address record. IPv6 is 4 A's address record. Those are the 2 address records you need to know. So that's what you would choose is C, install a server with an IPv6 address. Anytime you see AAAA, quad A in DNS server, it's always referring to IPv6. So that's the thing you should think about. Next on our list was NS. NS, November Sierra, stands for name server, sort of given away in the description, but there's really no other good way to do this. And of course, identifying the fully qualified domain name of a name server. If we wanted to find the name server for ProfessorMesser.com, your machine has to figure out, where is my name server? How do you get a list of all of the Professor Messer servers? We need to find his name server. How do we find it? Well, there's an entire process I detail in how DNS works to show you how that happens. But I have my own name server. My name server has a list of all of my servers and services inside of it, including text records and A records and quad A records and other things as well. And the way that you would find my name server is to query another name server and say, where's this guy keep his name server? And it will give you a fully qualified domain name that you would then need to perform another DNS lookup and be able to find that. It's a multiple process to finally get down there, but NS is how we find someone's name server. That's a pretty important, very critical type of DNS record. And then lastly, SOA. SOA, the list of DNS zone details. The starting record, the very first thing at the start of a name server is this SOA record. Whenever you start looking at DNS, there are a number of initial variables, initial things that need to be seen. For example, what is the caching set for on this server? What version of this DNS configuration file is this? And the start record that's in your DNS server, the SOA record, is the one that's going to list all of those details. That's where you should go to be able to find all of those different record types. Whenever I'm putting together these questions, I always leave a couple of extra at the end. And so the ones we did not use was identify the fully qualified domain name of an IP address. It's kind of backwards, isn't it? To be able to have that. And that's normally we're trying to find the fully qualified domain name. But what if we just give the name server an IP address? Can it give us a name back? It absolutely can. And you have to create a different record to be able to do that, what we call a reverse lookup effectively. And the last one we didn't have was find the fully qualified domain name of a mail server, another super important record to have in your DNS server. Make sure you have a look at those. Now, of course, there are records associated with both of those. Finding the fully qualified domain name of an IP address is a pointer record, PTR. The pointer record is a perfect one to use for this. And we also have the fully qualified domain name of a mail server is found by referencing the MX record. The mail exchange record is what that stands for. So we've got a lot of different options. In fact, this is only one of many of the options available in this particular video. There's a lot of other records that are in there. We have to know all of them. So make sure you go through and look at every single one of the records that are important for you to know for your exam. It's an increasingly important service. It's one that's you can easily make mistakes on and easily cause problems with, which again makes it so much more important that you know the details of DNS, and understanding these records is the first step in doing this. In fact, in the video, on my latest videos for A+, I showed there's some DNS record in there. That's how important it is. And I actually show what it looks like if you're using a web-based front end to the DNS server, because a lot of DNS services they can give you access to the configuration text file, but you could also do it from a web front end, which sometimes is a little bit easier. Gets rid of a lot of the noise, and you can focus on exactly what you're doing. Those are the ones you need to know. Now, in the chat room, you've already asked the question. There were 4 answers, 6 possible responses for this. It's possible you get some of these right and get others wrong. So do you get partial credit on this? CompTIA has a frequently asked questions on their website specific to performance-based questions where they have the question posed, do I get or have the opportunity to get partial credit on questions like this? And the answer that they give is, maybe. Sometimes we give partial credit. Sometimes we don't give partial credit. It's effectively a non-answer because there's no way for you to know. When you look at your exam results, you have no idea how they graded the exam. You don't know what questions you got right. You don't know what questions you got wrong. You don't know what questions you might have gotten partial credit. You don't know which questions you may have gotten no credit. They don't tell you. So as much as it's interesting to think about and to ponder and to try to figure out how to game that system, there's nothing to game. There's no knowledge at all we can get from our exam objectives. So that's what we're working through. That's the one we're trying to figure out. And the end story for partial credit is you'll never figure it out. There's no way to know. So I would recommend you don't worry about the grading. Don't worry about how they grade. Don't worry about how many points a particular question is worth. You'll never know. There's no way to find out afterwards. You can't somehow reverse engineer it. It's impossible. So in that particular case, don't worry about it. Focus on the exam contents. Focus on getting every question right that you can. The grading will work out itself in the end. That's my recommendation. You've got plenty of things to worry about. Grading the exam is not one of those. Take that off your slate, put it off to the side, and you should focus on knowing everything that's in your exam objectives. That's the key. So I would recommend you do that as well. So for those of you that look through here, the text record is publish a public key for email verification. Quad A is install a server with an IPv6 address. An NS record identifies the fully qualified domain name of any name server. An SOA record lists the DNS zone details. We've got a PTR record to identify the fully qualified domain name of an IP address, and an MX record identifies the fully qualified domain name of a mail server. There's a lot there to go through, and there's many more that you need to know. Make sure you check those out in my video, section 1.6, DNS record types. Hopefully you did pretty well on this particular performance-based question. I want to thank Christian in the chat room who says, just to thank you, $10 super chat. That's more than a thank you. I sure appreciate it. Utilized you for my A+. Now this. You are teaching a new generation of IT workers, and I appreciate all you do. In fact, it's interesting that the generation of workers is right. It's not a single age of workers. It's everybody. I see people at all ages trying to find a way into IT, and I think learning everything you can about networking is a great way to do it because every single thing you do in IT touches the network. It's an important thing to do. So we'll get through the rest of these questions today. Thank you, Christian, for the $10 super chat as well. And best of luck with your Network Plus. Let's do another question. I have back to our multiple choice-based questions first. Maybe that helps. This question, since we're talking about firewalls so much, let's do another firewall question. Not really a firewall question per se, but it's in the question itself. A recently installed firewall is estimated to be operational for 29 years. That's an actual statistic I pulled from an actual firewall, by the way. Which of the following would best describe this measurement? Would it be RTO, MTBF, AUP, RPO, or DLP? A recently installed firewall is estimated to be operational for 29 years. Which of the following would best describe this measurement? Is it RTO, MTBF, AUP, RPO, or DLP? If you think you know the answer, follow that link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. As always, please, no answers in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. We're going to try to figure this out. I did indeed go to a firewall company. You probably can guess the one I went to. And I had a look at this. I said, show me what this thing that I'm looking for. How long is that? And it said 29 years. I said, okay, let's put that in our question. So that's what the question has in it, 29 years. Not unusual. We'll talk more. I don't want to give away too much from the question, but that's probably pretty accurate. Why is it? Well, we'll talk about this in a moment, of why these numbers are what they are, how they come up with these numbers. I can tell you all about it from my days working for the firewall company. I know a little bit of the background of this. It comes up a little bit, quite a bit actually, where the things I was doing, these numbers came up quite a bit. So we'll talk a lot about why this is important, why people need these things, and ultimately, what is the abbreviation we're looking for? Lock in your question. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA. We'll see some of you, or a lot of you, already locking in your question. You must have done your research on these particular values just to see what the right answer might be. ProfessorMesser.com/QA. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asked, a recently installed firewall is estimated to be operational for 29 years. Which of the following would best describe this measurement? Is it RTO, MTBF, AUP, RPO, or DLP? Let's see what you think the answer is. 54% of you say it's MTBF, our second choice. 20% said RTO. 14% said RPO. 9% said AUP, and 5% said DLP. So our single digits, we'll throw those out. That really leaves us with MTBF, RTO, and RPO. So all of those abbreviations, or at least those three abbreviations, are all associated with recovery. This comes from my video 3.3, Availability Concepts, where I talk about these abbreviations and how we use them. I even give you some math problems that we step through just to see how well we might know these. One of these that we looked at, the first one on our list, was RTO, stands for a recovery time objective. When a system fails, your manager is going to be right over you asking, when's this going to be available? When's this going to be up and running? When can I tell them they can log in? Quick. Tell me. And before you say something badly, that's their job, but you can tell them the RTO on this particular issue is estimated to be 2 hours. So that might be their first chance to log in. Now, that doesn't mean that it's 100% operational, but it gets you back to a particular operation level. And in fact, maybe you're able to recover immediate data now, but later on you might have data from a year or 2 or 3 years ago that need to be added to the database. That might take longer. But if you want to get up and running and at least take care of some customers, you can do it now based on our RTO value. Well, in this case, we're looking to determine how long a firewall would stay up and running, so it would not be RTO. We also had as one of our answers RPO, which is a recovery point objective. So that's kind of works hand in hand with the RTO. RTO is how long does it take to get back up and running. The RPO determines now what are we able to do at that point. And a recovery point objective may be as soon as we have a year's worth of data in the database, we're going to go up and running and start taking phone calls or talking to our customers. We're not going to worry about year 2, year 3, year 4 later. Those will be recovered later on. But our recovery point objective is to be up and running and have a year's worth of data available. That's a perfectly reasonable RPO and RTO. Our question, though, was about a firewall being available and up and running for 29 years. And in fact, I went out and looked at a firewall on the Palo Alto Networks website, and the firewall that I looked at was all solid state. It was, I believe the one I was looking at was all solid state. There were no moving parts inside of the device. There weren't any fans. It was passively cooled. There's no moving parts. There's no hard drive inside of those, at least not anymore. Today, everything is solid state drive. All the components within the device are solid state, which means there's no moving parts. And if something fails, that's a bad situation. So we need to know how long is it going to be before something like that might fail. We want to know what the mean time between failures might be. I want to predict when I install this firewall, how long will this firewall run before something inside of that device causes it to no longer allow it to run. Now, if it's a hard drive running, maybe it would be a lot less than 29 years. If there were fans inside of the device, maybe it would be a lot less than 29 years. Maybe the fans are rated to last for 29 years. Maybe the hard drives are rated to last for 29 years. They probably aren't. But everything in this device appeared to be solid state, so that's probably why the number was so high. Now, if something was to fail in that device and the device had components that you could swap in and swap out, you could repair it, then you would have a time like an MTTR where somebody says, how long is it going to take to repair this firewall? In this particular case, though, MTBF, the mean time between failures, helps you understand how long this device may be active and stay active on our network. This is especially important for people that are buying components, and that's the position I had when I was with Palo Alto Networks. Is I was the systems engineer in the field. Customers would ask, I'd love to buy your firewall, but how long can I expect this thing to run without it failing with hardware components? And I get to grab the stats and go, well, according to the specifications, the MTBF is 29 years. They go, okay, so it can run for 29 years before we could expect on average one of the components inside of this device to fail. Perfectly reasonable number for solid state devices. MTBF, a very important statistic, because if I told the customer, oh, the MTBF on this device, 9 months, they might decide, that's not much time before it fails. I don't think this is the firewall for us. But if we say 29 years, well, then we got plenty of time. Maybe that's a good number, and we can now purchase the firewall, put it into our network, and not worry about something going wrong for about 29 years as far as the hardware of that device is concerned. So that's why 53% of you chose the mean time between failures, the MTBF. 53% of you got that one spot on. We already talked about why RTO and RPO would not be the right answers in this particular question. And then I threw in just sort of random acronyms, such as an AUP. And the way that you would know when something is really wrong in these questions is when you have things like a DLP and an AUP. An acceptable use policy, for example, is something given to employees to tell them how they can properly use the technology we are giving them. And then a DLP, data loss prevention, among other abbreviations for that, is a technology that can look for private information or specific types of information on the network and block that information from being transferred from place to place. Nothing like timing in a firewall, has nothing to do with firewalls being up and running. The only answer here that makes any sense is the MTBF. 53% of you got that one absolutely right, and that would be the answer we were looking for. Yosh in the chat room with the $9.99 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, hey, Professor, I want to say thank you. I was able to complete A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus all in less than a month. Thanks to your videos. You're the best. Wow. Okay. I didn't do less than a month, nor did I tell you that was a good idea. But I suspect, Yosh, that when you are working towards getting all three of those done in less than a month, I suspect you had a little bit of industry knowledge already. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong on that one. Or maybe you did no sleep. You didn't eat very much. You just read the books, watched the videos, looked at the course notes, worked through the practice exams, did some labs, and you walked into the exam. I guess that's possible too. If you don't sleep, you could probably do all three in a month. That's a remarkable, very aggressive schedule, but you did it. Congratulations on all three of those in less than a month. That's fantastic. And so now we keep going. Now, it never ends, of course. We're always doing something that's going further along with these. So congratulations on all three. And thank you also for the $9.99 super chat. Little flex, but we'll take it. I think that's perfectly reasonable. That's a good one, too. All three in less than a month? Absolutely. That's good to have. Let's do some more questions, shall we? Let's shift gears. And let's do, I know it's weird, we're going to do a security question, I think, in the middle of a Network Plus study group, but there's a ton of security on the exam, so that's the only hint I'm going to give you. And this question asks, very straightforward, what part of the CIA triad is associated with the letter C? C is not for cookie. And in this particular case, what part of the CIA triad is associated with the letter C? Is it a certificate's digital signature, file verification using hashes, active firewall configuration, monthly operating system patches, or encryption of all outgoing email. Now, if you know the answer, don't answer in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. What part of the CIA triad is associated with the letter C? This is another one of those examples, by the way, where CompTIA tells you it's the letter C, but the answers have nothing in them with a letter C. You have to know how to apply these ideas and techniques to an actual situation. So what part of the CIA triad is associated with the letter C? Is it a certificate's digital signature, file verification using hashes, active firewall configuration, monthly operating system patches, or encryption of all outgoing email? If you think you know the answer, follow the link, professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. If you're watching this on the replay, just in your mind, lock in the answer. We'll know in a moment what it happens to be. This is a good one. Now, there are, of course, in A+, Network Plus, and certainly in Security Plus, there's tons of security questions. That's because in all parts of IT, you have your own responsibility with the security of those systems. You can't just always rely on the security team to tell you how to secure a system. You have to be able to secure the systems you're working on. So if you're on the network team, there's some important security things you need to do with your switches, your routers, your SIM, your firewall, and other devices to keep those devices secure. If you're in A+, you're taking your A+ certification, there's tons of things you should be able to do in an operating system to keep those devices secure. And so I don't think I'm giving too much away when I mention the CIA triad is a security methodology. So that's about the only thing I'm really going to tell you about this. All of the things that are listed here are sort of security related. So it's up to you now to pick the right answer to see if you know what the CIA triad or the IAC triad, in some cases, I think we did IAC. Everybody just calls it CIA now because the CIA is a very well-known federal government agency. So it's kind of sort of easy. By the way, the CIA triad has nothing to do with the Central Intelligence Agency. That's not what it's about. So if you first saw that and said, why is he talking about the CIA? Maybe it's the FBI triad. No, it's not. It's not either of those. It's CIA and it means something completely different. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, what part of the CIA triad is associated with the letter C? Is it a certificate's digital signature, file verification using hashes, active firewall configuration, monthly operating system patches, or encryption of all outgoing email? How did you answer this one? I'm dying to know. Let's see. We have a number of different options there, but 57% of you said that it is encryption of all outgoing email. That's the answer we were looking for. 58% of you chose that answer is encryption of all outgoing email. We have 19% that said a certificate's digital signature. 12% of you said file verification using hashes. 7% said an active firewall configuration. And 3% said monthly operating system patches. Well, the CIA triad is an important type. It's certainly a very common way for us to understand the different aspects of security. And the C in CIA is specifically confidentiality. So anytime, and obviously in security, anytime you have data and you don't want that data seen by other folks, we need to keep that data confidential. That's an important thing that we do every day. In fact, if you're on professormesser.com right now, all of the data going over the network is confidential. Nobody can tap into that data and somehow see the information that you're sending back and forth. And we do that by using encryption, most commonly. For the case of network traffic, it's HTTPS. If you're sending an email to someone, you might encrypt it using some type of encryption built into your mail client, using SMIME, or maybe using PGP to be able to encrypt that data. It's a very, very important aspect of security. Access controls are also a way to provide confidentiality. If someone doesn't have access to the data, they obviously would not be able to see the data. So that's another way to make that happen. And then things like steganography. things we don't often think about, where you can embed data within other types of media. One common implementation of steganography is to embed data within a picture, send the picture to someone else. If someone happens to see the picture, they just see a picture. They have no idea there's data inside of that picture. But if you know how to retrieve the data, you can pull it out of the picture and send this data to someone else without anyone knowing that you're sending data back and forth to them. Pretty interesting. Confidentiality, encryption was the important part of this. And in fact, the one that 58% of you chose was encryption of all outgoing email. I did sort of put it right there. So if you knew what the answer was, it would have been very obvious. Always talking about something relating to encryption or preventing access to data. Therefore, encryption of all outgoing email is a perfect implementation of the C in the CIA triad. Now, there are other letters in the triad. For example, the I is the integrity part of the triad. Not only do we need to keep data private, but we need to be sure that nobody changes that data, especially if it's something incredibly important. We want to be sure that that data never changes. One way to do that is to provide some type of integrity. Practical methods of integrity checks are using things like hashes. That's a very easy way to check to see if the information that was sent to you is what you received on the other side, as you can compare the hash that was created on the front. So it's very easy. Take a hash of a data, send that data to someone else. They take a hash. You compare the hashes. If they're the same, the data is the same. A perfect example of using integrity. Digital signatures are another way to provide integrity of the data. In fact, it provides even non-repudiation. We talk more of that in our Security Plus course. Certificates are a great way to provide integrity so that you can be assured the site you're talking to is really the correct site. You'll notice I have certificates on ProfessorMesser.com, and those certificates point directly to my web server. And then we've, of course, got, as I mentioned, non-repudiation, which ensures that you know the data you received really came from the person who sent it. Nobody grabbed the data in the middle, changed something, and then sent it to you. Instead, you know everything you're looking at really did originate with the person who sent it. There's no way that someone could say that it is not that person. There's no way for someone to repudiate that. Therefore, it's non-repudiation. And the last letter in the CIA triad is availability, and always having data available. One important part of security, and this is probably one of the most important ones, is you can't do anything unless you have access to the data. So if you have redundant systems, you've built fault tolerance into your systems, you've created an active firewall configuration, you've patched the system so they won't break anything. That was the important part of this. So in this particular case, the one we were looking for, the C in the CIA triad, is a certificate's digital signature. Nope, that would be integrity. File verification using hashes. Nope, that would be integrity. Active firewall configuration, that would be availability. Monthly operating system patches would also be availability, which means the only one here that deals with confidentiality is encryption of all outgoing email. 59% of you, that's what we were looking for. That is the right answer. Hopefully that gives you some perspective on understanding the nuances of the CIA triad. Now, if you want more information on the triad and what's available there, you can always go to the video. It's in section 4.1 and the video name aptly named CIA triad. A lot to look there. So hopefully that can help you as you are going through these. Maybe it's another thing that you can kind of focus on. Now, you've already seen, of course, that there's tons of different acronyms, probably more acronyms in Network Plus than any other certification exam. Maybe Security Plus might be pretty close to Network Plus, plus all the different technologies. There's cable and fiber and subnetting and different topologies and security built on top of that, everything else going on. Of course, I want you to watch all 93 videos of my course, every minute of every video, which comes out to about 14 hours of video watching. But not everybody has the time or availability to sit through 93 separate videos. So what I did was take all of the great information from my videos and I put them all into a set of course notes. The course notes are all of the text, all of the charts, all of the important graphics. I put them into this set of course notes. You could see lots to go through here, lots of information to pull from. And indeed, This is probably one of the best ways to take all of that data from the courses, all of the videos, and put them into one single document. There are both digital versions and physical printed versions of the course notes. They're, of course, identical in content, but different in how they are delivered. And if you purchase the physical version, the one I have here, then you also get the digital version for free. Or you can just get the digital version. Maybe you would like the PDF and you can put it on all your mobile devices and your computer, so it will always be there with you no matter where you happen to be. That's what I would recommend as well. You can find out more about my course notes. Go to professormesser.com/NPCN for Network Plus course notes, or just simply be able to pull the information right at the top of the site. There's a pull-down window. You can find the course notes from there as well. It's a great way to support what we do here, and in return, you're getting some great study materials for your Network Plus exam. That's at professormesser.com/NPCN. Let's do some more questions. I'm going to fit some more in here. This next question asks, a network technician needs to connect to the console cable of an Ethernet switch. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Would it be 110 block, APIPA, DB9, FCOE, or SC? Sierra Charlie. A network technician needs to connect to the console cable of an Ethernet switch. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Is it a 110 block, APIPA, DB9, FCOE, or SC? Now, if you think you know the answer, follow the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll see how well we do with this one, connecting to the console of an Ethernet switch. Some of you may have already connected to a console of an Ethernet switch before, so what did you use? Who knows what the right answer might be? If you think you know, follow that link that's on your screen. There it is, professormesser.com/QA. That's where you would lock in your answer. A little slower locking in this one than some of the others. I wonder if it's going to be a little different in the answers we see. Does that mean everybody already got it right? Does it mean that we're mixing it up? I don't look at the answers until we all look at it together. So I have no idea what you're locking in and what might be there. For those of you in the chat room are saying, hey, I got a weirdness on the video and it's doing a video funny thing. All of the video that you are seeing is coming directly from YouTube. It doesn't come from me, oddly enough. So it's your connection to YouTube. You might want to try clicking the cog wheel and maybe lowering the resolution if you have a slower network connection. That might help you with the video. Everything here looks super good on the video that I'm sending over to YouTube. That doesn't mean there aren't any problems on YouTube side. There certainly could be, but there are some things you could do on your side to maybe help as well. And maybe changing the resolution to something a little bit smaller might help you too. Something you can work with. Yes, it's going to be different for everyone since YouTube distributes the video in different ways in different places, but I think that's a good way to do it. Yeah, refresh that. Let's all blame YouTube. I think it's fine. But indeed, it's free, so it's hard to complain, isn't it? And there's some great stuff happening on the YouTube side with our content specifically. So we'll talk more about that when I'm able to. But there's plenty to go through there. Let's answer this question. A number of you have locked in your answers. The question asked, a network technician needs to connect to the console of an Ethernet switch. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Is it 110 block, APIPA, DB9, FCOE, or SC? Let's see how you answered this question. 74% of you said DB9 is what I would use. 11% said 110 block. And then we immediately hit single digits for SC at 6%, FCOE at 5%, and APIPA at 4%. So 73% at DB9 is pretty strong, but is that the right answer? Or did we all just sort of jump into a particular wrong answer given the question? Well, in this case, if you answered DB9, you got it absolutely correct. That is what we were looking for. One common way to have a console connection on a router, on a switch, especially the older models of these devices, is to use an incredibly common serial connection that has an interface type of DB9. Yes, I know. I wait for your emails where you can tell me that technically that's not DB died. Technically, it's DE died. The second letter B or E specifies the size of the interface. I know. And you will, in fact, see, if you look at Amazon or other places you'd buy them, you will see that the manufacturers will sometimes even put DE9 on there, which, by the way, just means you're absolutely correct. But we don't tend to call it DE9 because the first interface we started using for serial connections was this big 25-pin connector, and this longer connector is the B connector, and the DB25 is what we used forever in this industry. When we made the connection a little smaller into the 9-pin connection, we used the smaller connector, and that smaller connector is the E echo connector. So technically it's a DE9, but we just don't call it that. We just never called it, because we called it a DB25, we thought that meant the number of pins. So when we came out with a 9-pin, we just assumed, oh, it's a DB9. And we just called it a DB9. So whenever you buy those, you may want to search for both if you ever need one. That's both a DB9 and a DE9, which are exactly the same thing. Because technically speaking, DB9 is not correct. But now that we've used it so much, it is correct because we've used it so much. Words are funny. And this is another good example of the things you would run into. We used to use these with so many different interfaces. It used to be, we'd use this with our mice. We use this with our well, not necessarily keyboards, but definitely a mouse connection. Use these with printer connections. There were serial printers that you could get. We use these with scanners, all kinds of different connections that use these. But then we came up with a new way to connect serially to our devices called USB, a universal serial bus. The USB was much faster. It was a single connection type. It was this much smaller connector. And so everything we used to have on the DB9 and DB25 is effectively now running just fine on something like a USB. That's what we would be working through. So that is what we were looking for on our serial connection. On our console cable was a DB9, as inaccurate as it is and as accurate as we've made it. 73% of you got that one absolutely correct. That is the right answer. 11% of you said a 110 block. 110 block is a punch-down block. You use it to punch down cables, wires into the punch-down block. There's a lot of different punch-down blocks in the Network Plus now. So you have to know the Chrome block and the 110 block and all the other blocks that are in there. But you would not use a 110 block or any type of punch-down block to connect to the serial interface on a switch or a router. Normally, you're walking in with a laptop, you got your cable, you plug in with the cable, and you start working. That's the way we would normally do it. You're stuck in a closet. There's nowhere to put your laptop. Sometimes we can do it on a tablet, make it a little easier, but then there's fewer options on a tablet for serial connectivity. It just you have to really be prepared for anything. If you used to look at my bag that I would take, have my laptop inside of it, and then I would have set up an 8-wire cable, usually just an Ethernet patch cable, 1 to 1, 2 to 2, just a straight through cable. That's a Cat5 cable, Cat5e. And I would have connectors that I could modularly plug in and unplug from the ends of those so that I could have 25 pin on one side, 9 pin on the other. A number of these devices, like switches and routers, don't even have a 9-pin connection. They use an RJ45 connector as the serial connection, just to make it more complicated, I guess. So I'd have a different connector for everything. And then what about null modem? So there's a whole nother set of cables. What about loopback? There's a whole nother set. So try to make it as modular as possible. Used to carry around a lot of DB9. These days, we tend to carry around a USB to DB9 cable, which has its own challenges to get running, but works perfectly well once you figure out the details of that. That is the question we were looking for. If you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, I would love to send you an email that gives you a 1 hour of a continuing education unit credit in a webinar category. The way that you would get that email is you would go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, and you would click the Contact Us link. Contact Us, and that will bring up a form that asks for your name, your email address, and then in the subject line, you would put October 2022 Network Plus. It's really all you have to put in there, just so I can know where this came from. In the body of the message, on a line by itself with no other text on that line. It's just one single set of words on that single line. You want to put the words, which one should I use here? Let's use the answer. Let's use DB9. DB9 is our super secret code word of the month. Put that on a line by itself with no other text. And then underneath that, if you want to put any text you'd like, if you'd like to send me a message, if you'd like to put anything else in there that you would like me to read through, I read through every single one of these. Feel free to add it to that message. And then I will send you back, usually in about a week, an email that certifies that you must have been here and you're granted 1 hour of a webinar category CEU. So that's the way to work through this. So I think that is a perfect way to earn 1 hour of a CEU, is by going through that process, and you must go through that process to earn a CEU. Sometimes I'll get messages that say, here's a message and I'd like my CEU, please. But there's no code word. There's nothing in there that tells me what you watched or anything. You have to make sure you follow those directions. The directions you follow are just as important as the code word itself. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link, put in your name, your email address, put something in that subject line that makes me know that it's October 2022 Network Plus Study Group, and then in the body of the message, put the super secret code word DB9. And if you don't want to put anything else, it's all you have to do. Click send. I'll take care of the rest. It's a good way to do it. Now, I know we're at the top of the hour, but let's try to fit one more question in, shall we? I made this one less controversial just for you. This next question asks, a network administrator has found some Category 5E cable installed in a rented office space. Which of the following would be the minimum Ethernet standard supported by this cable type? Is it 40G base T, 2.2G base T, 1000 base T, 10G base T, 5G base T? All real standards. I can't necessarily say that all of these standards are on the Network Plus exam objectives, but many of them are. So let's step through them again. A network administrator has found some Category 5E cable installed in a rented office space. Which of the following would be the minimum Ethernet standard supported by this cable type? Is it 40G base T, 2.2G base T, 1000 base T, 10G base T, or 5G base T? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. There it is. And you can lock in your answer. Great way to do it. See if you know what this one is. The reason I say I made this less controversial is I didn't say Category 5 cable, which just makes people crazy. And it's in reality, it's just a tempest in a teacup, because you're probably never going to run into Category 5 cable anymore. It just doesn't, it's hard to find. It's difficult to find. It's not sold anymore. So the only time you would find it is in a box in the back room, or it's already been installed in a wall 20 years ago. Probably more than 20 years ago now I'm thinking about it. So it's been in the wall for a while. And the reality, and this is the part that's controversial and a lot of people don't realize, is Category 5 cable and Category 5E cable is identical to each other. They're the same cable. Physically the exact same cable. It's nothing different between them. They're exactly identical. But that makes people crazy. So we're not going to go down that road. We'll say it's Category 5E, and we can avoid all of the concern and worry that people have about categories of cable. See if you know what this answer is. Lock in your answer. Go to professormesser.com/QA. A number of you already have. Let's see how you do with this one. Oh, before we do that, I was going to slide up Beats by Quez, $2 super chat. Says, hello, Professor. Taking my Security Plus tomorrow. We're all sending good vibes to you. Thank you for the $2 super chat. Best of luck on that Security Plus. As you probably know, that's a tough one. There's a lot of content that you have to go through to be able to make that happen. So hopefully that will help you as well. That's a good exam, though, to have. That's a good certification to have. So best of luck with that. And thank you again for the super chat. Let's see how you did with this question. It asked again, a network administrator has found some Category 5E cable installed in a rented office space. Which of the following would be the minimum Ethernet standard supported by this cable type? It's free cable. It's in the wall, right? We can use this. Is it 40G base T, 2.2G base T, 1000 base T, 10G base T, or 5G base T? What'd you answer? Dying to know. 72% of you, almost identical to the last one, said 1000 base T. 21% of you said 10G base T. 4% said 5G base T. 3% said 2.2G base T. And nobody said it's running at 40 gig. So real question on this one is, we got category 5E cable. What would be the best we could do in this list? What is the minimum we would do in this list? In fact, in this particular question, the minimum and the maximum are actually identical on this one. How crazy is that? So if you mixed up, I chose maximum and not minimum, you actually were fine in both of these, because category 5E cable can specifically, the maximum supported category for 1000 base T is category 5E, which is the enhanced. That's what the E is for, is the enhanced version of category 5E. As I mentioned, category 5 and category 5E cable are physically the same cable. The only difference is the test that they ran on the cable at the end. Category 5E, the enhanced, means they ran, I think, 4 or 5 extra tests to be able to get specific statistics, measurements that would qualify that as the enhanced version of the cable. They just didn't run those tests on the category 5E, but they also didn't change the cable either. It's exactly the same cable, which means you could probably take a category 5 cable, run the same tests on category 5, and it would run and turn out to be equivalent to category 5E because you ran those tests. That's crazy, but that's the way it works, which means they support exactly the same category and the same Ethernet standard of 1000 base T. You can do gigabit Ethernet, 1000 base T, with category 5 and category 5E because those are identical. And in fact, that is the minimum. Once you now move up to the 10G base T, you're in category 6. I guess technically the 2.2G base T runs on Cat 5e too, doesn't it? I have to go back and look at my standards. That's not part of the exam objectives. 2.2G base T is not in there, but I want to say category 5e is supported for 2.2G base T, which maybe is why I put minimum in there now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe I wanted to be really sure. I don't even know if I looked up the standard to see what it was, but I wanted to be sure that was the case. The minimum we wanted was 1000 base T. 72% of you got that one absolutely right. Wouldn't it be great rolling into a rented office space and there's already cable in the wall? That would solve a lot of problems, wouldn't it? In this case, 5E, I can run gigabit. We're up and running, everybody. We can make things happen because the cables are already in the wall, ready to go. We don't need anything else. And I look forward to all the cards and letters for people that don't believe that category 5 and category 5E is exactly the same cable. Looking forward to that. I should make a video just on that. First, layer 3 switches don't exist, and Cat 5 runs perfectly fine with gigabit Ethernet, which for some reason the industry has decided, I think retroactively. Like when we were running gigabit on category 5, everybody was fine with this. And then when we did 5E, something happened in the zeitgeist. Something happened in the scheme of how we looked at cable, and suddenly the cable that we've been using for years to run gigabit doesn't run gigabit anymore. I don't know why we decided that. Somehow all the books and websites decided that. That's not the case. Category 5 and Category 5E work perfectly fine with 1000 base T, and in fact, both are. Category 5 is the minimum specified in the 802.3 Ethernet standard, which is why you don't have to trust me on this one. Just go read the standard. Standard is remarkable. First, it's cryptic because it's written by a bunch of engineers, and most of it are way above everyone's head. Engineers are got it, but it's way above most everybody's head. But there is some important things in there, like what category of cable is recommended for this particular type or is required for this particular standard. And it tells you right in the Ethernet standards. You may not realize this. In fact, I'll give you a little hint on this. The Ethernet standard is also one that you can download for free because you are a student, because you're learning these things. The IEEE doesn't make you pay for it. So I absolutely recommend you go out to the IEEE website and you want to grab that standard, and there's a special program they have on the IEEE website. We may look at that in just a bit. in the after show, because that's really valuable. If you can get your hands on that standard, you read through it and suddenly somebody says, well, you can't run gigabit on Cat 5. What if this was Cat 5 in the wall? And they said, well, we need to run gig. There are people that would say, well, that doesn't run gig, and they just won't use it. And then they'd spend a lot of money and time putting in new wires, when in fact the IEEE standard says, well, of course it runs gig. We designed it for Cat 5. So that's the real important part of this. It can save you time. It can save you money. Knowing those standards is incredibly important, and it's free to download. And we'll look at that in just a bit. That's something we can do in the after show. Well, we've gone through an hour of Q&A. Hopefully that's given you some insight into some of the topics that you might find on the Network Plus exam. But all of this information, I didn't make it up. It came directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. This is a valuable document, by the way. If you have not downloaded this, it's free, and it tells you everything you need to know to pass the exam. Literally everything you need to know. Bullet by bullet by bullet. If you know everything that is in these exam objectives, you're going to pass your exam no problem. If you've ever been studying, you think, is this topic on the exam? You can look at your exam objectives and it will tell you. If you've got through your studies and you're thinking, am I ready to take the exam? You're questioning yourself and you're wondering, am I really prepared? The exam objectives will tell you if you're prepared. They make a great checklist. So go to professormesser.com/objectives. I have a link over to the CompTIA website, or simply go to your favorite search engine, type in CompTIA exam objectives. It'll be the first link. You'll find it easily, and you can download this and use it as your tool whenever we start working through this. Well, as I've told you, we do one of these study groups every month. We've been doing one of these study groups every month for years and years and years and years and years. But it's October now. You'll notice my next study group is not in November. It's in December. So we're skipping a month. First time in years I've ever skipped a month, I think. And for no weird reason. It's just a scheduling problem with fitting them in November. There's just chaos going on. Nothing bad. There's nothing. I'll be back in December. Don't worry. But it's just one of those weird scheduling things that I can't do a study group this month. But I'll absolutely be back in December, and we'll keep doing years and years and years of study group. I am in no way stopping this train. It's a lot of fun. So I can't wait to get back in here in December. But set your calendar. Go to professormesser.com/calendar if you're not sure when this is going to be. No, don't G-quit now. We're just getting a bunch of raid together. We're finally geared up. Now's not the time to G-quit. December 14th, come back. We'll do more Network Plus. I'm toying with the idea of maybe fitting in maybe a 1 hour or 2 hour audio on Discord kind of thing. But we'll have to see how this goes. When I say chaos, it's just chaos. There's a lot going on for me in November, so we'll figure it out. And we'll have an idea when that might happen. Come on back December 14th. Keep checking the calendar just in case more chaos happens and I have to move that date. You'll find the new date always on professormesser.com/calendar. I also duplicate that if you're one of my Discord members. At the top of the Discord channel list is events, and I always put the updates there as well. So you'll know immediately if an event happens to change. It's a great way to find out what we're doing here as well. We've gone through an hour of Q&A, but I'm not done answering questions from you. We're going to take questions on this. Absolutely go to professormesser.com /live, or stay on YouTube right now, because I'm looking at the YouTube chat. That's where you'll be able to put your questions right into the chat. Don't forget about our success bundle at professormesser.com/QA. We've also got the Exam Hacks ebook and vouchers available at professormesser.com/vouchers. And of course, we're always here doing something. If you like this video, we would love it if you gave it a thumbs up, something you can do for free that it really does help. That's why YouTube creators will always tell you, please subscribe, please hit the thumbs up button. It really does help us quite a bit. I've been having a lot of calls with YouTube lately. We're doing some really interesting things on the back end that will help you be able to learn this information even better. YouTube's doing some fantastic things. I can't talk about it yet, but they've sworn me to secrecy, but you're going to love it. It's going to be great. So these little things we keep doing to make the process even easier to move you into learning this content, getting a job or getting a better job. And we couldn't do this without your help. Thank you so much for doing everything that you do. Thanks for joining us on this. Thanks for all of your messages and questions throughout the month. We love hearing from you. Thank you for doing that. Stick around for the after show. We got lots more to come. We've got plenty of questions that you will be asking me, and usually we'll figure out how to get that IEEE standard as well. Stick around for that after show. Thank you for being here. We will see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group. All right, let's get some coffee. My problem is that I switched realms, and now it's a full realm I couldn't transfer in, and now I have to level up before the update. It's not going to happen. I guess I could use my move, what is it, 50 or 60 level up, but anyway, we are now done with the formal part of the study group. We are now in the after show of the study group. In the after show, this is the part where I don't have to prepare very much. The first section is half a day of preparation. This section has 0 days of preparation because I'm not asking you questions anymore. You're asking me questions. And if you would like to ask me questions, I need to put the proper lower third on so that you can see, there it is. You can either do this from my website at professormesser.com/live, or if you are on YouTube right now, you can ask the question on YouTube. I'm watching the YouTube chats go by. So this is the YouTube chat that's right in front of me. I'm watching those things go by. So if you're there, you are in the right place. You can't go wrong. Austin asks, $2 super chats come in. Austin asks, healthcare certifications other than HCISPP. Boy, we're really getting crazy with our certifications now, aren't we? I do not have plans for a healthcare specific certification. There was a time when CompTIA had a healthcare certification. It didn't catch on very much for, I guess, many reasons. But it did not quite, didn't quite resonate for some reason. I don't have any plans to do anything specific to healthcare, but I can tell you if you are working in a IT department in a hospital or a similar environment, everything that's in A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus is going to suit you quite well. So another good one to have. So unfortunately, I don't have anything planned that's healthcare specific, but of course, all the things that we do can be applied to practically any particular vertical market, including a healthcare market. Lots of questions coming in. The way you ask these questions, go to professormesser.com/live or simply put the question in the YouTube chat. I've now lost my cable. I've now rolled over it, help, and now my headset is stuck to my chair. Oh, I knew I should have gone wireless with this. So now I can't hear myself. Now I'm being dragged around the room with my chair. We're going to do this so that this isn't too embarrassing. I'm now going to lift my chair up. Too bad you're not getting this on video. I really should have this. We're going to put the chair back down. And now there's adapters everywhere. Oh, okay. I think I might have managed to finally get this off. Okay. I got it. It's now no longer part of my chair. It's now, there we go. The blooper reel would be something. That one was kind of boring. It was me disconnecting a cable. All right, let's put our ear back in and figure out how we can answer some of these questions that are coming in. Austin, thank you for that question about healthcare certs. And I'm going to keep an eye out. I never say never with practically anything except the certified ethical hacker. That's the only one I will never, ever create is the CEH. But everything else, who knows? It could possibly happen someday. So always keep an eye on that. Nice setup, show up for longer. Well, there's plenty to be seen. This is the setup for those of you that have watched. If you wanted to get details on what most of these things are, I need to update my list, but it's at professormesser.com/studio. If you want to know what mic is that, what crazy mouse is he using? That is a crazy mouse. It's huge. What is that like? What's that made for? Well, apparently made for me. It's enormous. It's a big mouse. It fits your entire hand and it sits on it. It's called a hand shoe mouse, literally, because it's as big as a shoe. And your whole hand sits on it, which not great for gaming, but for day-to-day, long-term, because I sit here a long time, your hand just sits on the mouse. You're not crunched up. at the end of the day, I would have a hand that was crunched up. Like I'll use the mouse all day, and my hand's it's a big hand. So having a mouse that your entire hand fits on, it seems like I'm holding it really close to the camera. I'm not. This is my hand now. It just sits on the mouse. In fact, they have different sizes you can get, like a small, medium, and large. I don't even remember which one I got, but that's what I use. So yes, there's plenty to see here. Lots that we're doing, and indeed, you can find all of that at professormesser.com/studio. Let's see what other questions have come in. What books would I recommend? Oh, first, before we do that, William, great question about the books. Let me first go over to the IEEE website, specifically the 802.3 section of the IEEE website. And what you're looking for is the IEEE GET program. This GET program is the one that gives you access to the standards without having to buy something. The subsidized sponsorship of standards via the IEEE GET program helps expand the global reach of technical knowledge developed by industry, accelerates adoption of IEEE standards, contributes to an open knowledge community, promulgates open information exchange to foster innovation, and connects the IEEE brand with the development of world-changing technologies for the benefit of humanity. That's pretty good. What that means is you get the IEEE standards for free. That's what that is. And it tells you in here how the program works, what you do. For the complete list of programs and supported standards, you go to the IEEE GET program. It tells you all the ones that are available to you. For example, you want to get the 802.3 standard. They have a section just for 802 standards. And the one you're looking for, they have 802.11. So if you want wireless standards, download them. You want Ethernet standards, download them. They're in here. And the one you're looking for is the 802.3 2018. There are other standards in here like the 802.3CQ, 802.3CC, 802.3CT. You don't need those. You need the 802.3 2018. That is the consolidated standard for Ethernet. If you were going to download one, that's the one you would download. It's going to ask you information about how you might qualify for this standard. I'm going to accept some cookies. Is it loading? It's loading. Maybe it's loading. We're going to find out if it's loading. And then it will give you options. You have to create a registration. You have to, here it is, the standard for Ethernet and what you can do. And then you have all the downloads available. And it even tells you when you go to that standard page that it is available through the IEEE GET program. And then you can follow the links to download everything that might be there. It even creates a version of the standard that's just for you. And at the bottom of every page, it even has your name just so nobody else could use that standard. It would not be legitimate. So there's some specific licensing because the way that IEEE continues to operate is manufacturers pay for the standards and then they have access when they want to create hardware. So that's why if you're in that particular situation. Now, the IEEE standard, it's a tough read. I probably have the one on my screen for IEEE 802.3 Ethernet standard. So let's just load it up and see what mine looks like when I load it up. So the IEEE standard for Ethernet, here it is. So this is what it will look like when you finally get it downloaded. And you can't see it on there, so let me make it a single page because at the bottom of the page, it has on here, authorized license use limited to James Besser, downloaded on September 20th, 2020 at 13/16/29 UTC from IEEE Explorer. Restrictions apply. It's like you're buying a car. IEEE standard for Ethernet. Now, it's big. How many pages? Let's hit end. And on this page, how many pages am I through? This is page 5,600 of the standard. So you can imagine if I scroll down to just the table of contents, once we're through everybody that helped write this thing, this is the table of contents. Page 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Keep going. Table of contents. We're going more. Keep going. Page 50, page 54. So 54. So That's a lot of table of contents. It's much easier for search through things that you need. Unfortunately, PDF lets you search through those very easily. But that's where you're able to find information about what is really supported and what just somebody off the internet or off the street or in some books says is supported, which very often, interestingly enough, two different things. For some reason, there are books, there are websites, there are trusted sources that you might visit that might tell you something about the IEEE 802.3 standard that actually has nothing to do with the IEEE 802.3 standard. I don't know why that's that way, but for some reason that happened. And what I do when somebody mentions, category 5 can't run gigabit, I go back to the standard and say, here's exactly what the standard says in this section on this page, and here's the text. So it's not me saying it. I didn't make it up. I'm not making a guess here. It's not me deciding that I'm going to go different than what other people have said. I'm just following the standard. And by the way, so is CompTIA, so is Cisco, so is Wikipedia, so is any company that makes networking hardware and software. It all follows the standard. Or if it doesn't, then it's not standard, and you can point them back to the standard to get those things fixed. So that's why those things are there. And they're very valuable to have some final source you can go to. And I tell people all the time, don't trust me. Go look at the standard. Here's what I say the standard says. You can confirm that by doing what I just did, which was here's where you download it from. Get the standard. Now, when I say the standard is a little crazy, that it's got a lot going on. So let me give you an idea of, in the standard, there are many pages in the standard that talk about, this one is talking about, let's back up a little bit. So it's talking about common constants, types, and variables that are used in the standard. Oops, now lost it. And there it is. Now here, for instance, the transmit state variables, the interpacket gap part 1, the interpacket gap part 2, the IPG stretch ratio, the attempt limit, the back off limit, the burst limit, the jam size, the outgo. This just goes on. Imagine having to document every tiny piece of information that makes Ethernet work. That's what this is. Now, fortunately, a lot of the things that are in here are not that complicated. For example, let's see if I can find the section of this that talks about category 5. I don't think I've ever done this in a live stream since this has come up. It is in the standard, and I've got a comment. I've got information in here about where in the standard it's covered. So I'm going to find out where I happen to put that. It is under section 40.7.1. Well, I'm in section 5 now. So I'm going to be scrolling ahead to 40.7.1. I wonder if a search is going to work. If I do that, oh, here it is. Cabling system characteristics for 1000 base T. So you can get information on 1000 base T. 1000 base T requires 4-pair Class D cabling with a nominal impedance of 100 ohms as specified in the ISO IEC 11801-1995. That's the standards for cabling that we would use. CompTIA doesn't decide standards for cabling. They simply use the cables that are already available. CompTIA tells you what cables you should be using. The cabling system components, cables, cords, and connectors used to provide the link segment shall consist of Category 5 components, as specified in the NCTIA EIA 568A, I've heard that before, 1995 standard, and the ISO IEC 11801-1995. So there it is. There's where in the standard they tell you, and this is in the section 4. Let me scroll out here. This is in the section that specifies the 1000 base T standard. So it tells you 1000 base T runs on Cat 5. So that's where this standard can really, really help you if you're trying to explain to someone else why this cabling will work great for this. That's where this comes from. It comes directly from the standard. So let's take another scenario where this might help you. This one is a little more difficult to do, but the crossover cable is another one that people get confused about, because some people will tell you to create an Ethernet crossover cable. You put 568A on one side, and you put a 568B wired cable on one side. You put a 568B wired cable on the other side. You have two connectors, and you just put different connectors on there. We again can go back to the IEEE standards and look at what they say a crossover cable would look like. And I've got to find there's a lot of crossover cables in the standard. So I suspect this one is going to be part of that same section, which is section, what did I specify that is? It's section 40, section 40. So I'm going to go to the table of contents and find that particular. The problem is that the PDF that you download does have a lot of different versions of this book. So you end up having multiple ones to go with. I'll have to find the crossover piece in this section 40 because it's big. This whole section of 1000 base T is super large. Now, fortunately, a lot of these, they've already got me in mind because they use a lot of pictures, and I'm big on pictures. So I'm just sort of scrolling through the section 40 right now. Not compelling live stream content, by the way. Normally, I would just have this ready to go, and we'd flip over to, instead of the registers, what are the different cables we would use, what do the crossovers look like, and it may not even be in a diagram, it may not be in a table, it may just be written down for this one. Here it is. The pinouts for MDI and MDIX, the crossover function. There it is. Crossover cable. So they tell you in contact 1 through contact 8, here is what cables are on the MDI. Notice they don't tell you pin 1, pin 2, pin 3, pin 4. They label it with BI, DA+. It's bidirectional data, A+, A-, B+, C+, C-, D-, D+, and D-. So they're just using very generic terms to tell you pin 1, DA+, goes to pin 3 on the MDIX side. So MDI and MDIX are effectively what people are trying to call 568A and 568B, except MDI is not 568A and MDIX is not 568B. 568A and B decide what colors of cable you use. But notice if you were to tie these back and you were actually to create a wire map from this different table, that wire map is not 568A on one side and 568B on the other. It simply, physically, is not. So that's why I tell people that's not what a crossover cable is defined as. And in fact, for gigabit Ethernet, if you put 568A on one side and 568B, it doesn't cross over. And people wonder, why wouldn't it cross over? I've been told my entire life that 568A on one side and 568B is a crossover cable in Ethernet, except I just showed you that it is not for 1000 base T, for gigabit Ethernet. Now, interestingly enough, and the reason this issue exists, that coincidentally, and not really a coincidence, but there's a lot of history behind this, on 100 megabit and 10 megabit Ethernet, it turns out that if you did put 568A on one side and 568B on the other, you would have coincidentally the same pin outs as a crossover cable. But if you look at the standard for the 802.3, that's not how a crossover cable is defined. They defined it as pin 1 to pin 3, pin 3 to pin 1. They define it as the actual pinouts because the 568A standard and the 568B standard are just colors. As far as this particular use of those standards, it's just describing what colors are going into a particular pin. It's not describing Ethernet crossover. And a good example of that is it all falls apart once you get to gigabit. Suddenly our ability to have some type of quick reference to this doesn't work when we finally get to gigabit. So that's why I tell people don't memorize 568A to 568B as crossover, because in actuality it isn't. That's not how you define a crossover. And then when you get to gigabit Ethernet, it doesn't work that way anyhow. It's not actually a crossover cable. So don't get into that situation where you're using some other system to describe another system. That doesn't work. It falls apart eventually, and in this case, it falls apart when you get to gigabit. That's an easy one, though. That's one you can actually show people. Well, draw the pinouts for 568, 568B, then draw the pinouts for a gigabit crossover cable. Wait, Those aren't the same thing. That's right. So it's not the same thing. We've all been lied to. We've all been lied to, and it doesn't actually work that way. So that's why we get into that. That's an easier one. It is in the standards. The problem, though, is you can't get to the 568. You can't get to the EIA standards. They're not available unless you find them somewhere. Those are ones you would have to buy. They don't have a program like the IEEE has. But in reality, all we need to know for 568 and 568B is the colors, and we already know those. So we don't necessarily need the standard for that one. Hoarder Alliance, both actually. No, that's a problem. That's an issue. So there you go. Now we have a problem. I kind of play both sides on that one. I have been in different guilds through the years. And so some guilds are really, they're all Alliance, or some guilds are all Horde. So I kind of flip back and forth. I only have like an hour at night to sit down and do something like that. So to me, it doesn't matter. Just wherever I can get where people are. That's why I moved to a full server. I literally made a new character on a full server because that's where the people are. Was that smart? Probably not. But it's what I did. That's where we are. That's how it works out. Let's see what other questions we have. I want to thank Owen in the chat room with the £5 super chat. Thank you so much for that, Owen, who says, thanks again for helping me pass my Network Plus exam. I have a question for you. Would you recommend Security Plus as the next step? That's a good question. And it's a question a lot of people have, is that I did this, now what do I do? I did my A+, now what do I do? I did my Network Plus, now what do I do? And I think a number of people do A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, and that is a very common process. It's one that a lot of people will follow. But I tell people, don't take a certification exam because everybody says that's the one you should take. In fact, other people can't tell you with any type of accuracy what you should do next, because we don't know what you want to do in life. We don't know where you are. We don't know where you're moving to. We don't know what direction you're going. We don't know what your goals are. We don't know what your short-term and long-term ideas about what you'd like to do in this industry. So we can't specifically say, oh yeah, Security Plus should totally be the next thing you do, because we don't know what you want to do with these certifications. Let's say that most of you watching, and I think this is probably true, most of you watching are working on these certifications to either get a job or get a better job. That's our mission statement for what we do. Everything we create here is to try to get you that first job or get you a better job in IT. Anytime you can level up into IT and then keep moving is a good thing. So my question is always, when people say, what should I do next, is to turn the mirror around and say, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get your first job in IT? Great. All the jobs in your area that are first jobs in IT, what are they asking for? Do they all want you to have Security Plus? Do none of them want you to have Security Plus? That would be some good information to know. What if you, and I mentioned this, I have a video, it's in this YouTube video description that says how to get a job in IT with no experience. It's a 30-minute video. I know, it's big, but it's 30 minutes because that's the smallest I could make it. It is chock full of data. This 30-minute video describes the process of finding the right job for you. And I describe the process of creating a spreadsheet, finding all the jobs in your area that you feel you qualify for. I mean, let's be realistic. You're not going to be the director of security right out of the gate. You're probably going to start the help desk. You're probably going to start an entry-level position in that company. So write down in your area or in jobs that are available to you, make a spreadsheet of all the jobs that are available to you, what those jobs are, where they're from, maybe the URL you found that job. Find out what type of formal education they'd like you to have. Find out what type of certifications they would like you to have, and then find out what other knowledge they would like you to know. And put all of this into a spreadsheet and go from job to job to job. Maybe get 10, 15, even maybe 20 of these in your spreadsheet. Then take a step back, look at the spreadsheet, and have a look. How many of these jobs want you to have a Security Plus? If you are in the DC area, if you're in Maryland, if you're in Virginia, you may find that all of them want you to have Security Plus. If you live in Minneapolis, if you live in LA, if you live in Dallas, and it's with an organization that has nothing to do with the federal government, you may find that some might want Security Plus, some might not. You may find it very different depending on the segment. So that's why I tell people when they say, should I do Security Plus next? I don't know. I have no idea because I don't know your goals. I don't know what people are looking for. I don't know any of those things. And you have to be the one to answer this question. No one else can answer this question for you. The one thing I will have really put the notice to you, because I've seen people do this, is that collecting certifications has value for your own personal knowledge. In fact, you might want to decide, I don't have an IT degree yet, I don't have an IT job, but I want to go get the CCNA. Everybody tells me I should get a Cisco Certified Network Administrator. But the CCNA is not an entry-level cert. In fact, it's a pretty aggressively difficult cert to take. It's one you really got to know your stuff. You really got to understand networking at the packet level. You got to understand how to manage switches, routers at the command line. You got to be able to troubleshoot those. It's extensive. It's really more of an intermediate level certification. But for some reason, people will tell you, why don't you just get the CCNA? Those people are making six figures. Well, they might be, but they're making six figures after having a solid foundation of knowledge in operating systems and an entry-level knowledge of networking, and then finally being able to manage networks at a very high level. Those are the network administrators. It took them a number of years to work it up to that level. Nobody starts in an organization as a network administrator. They would never let you touch routers or switches if you've never touched one before. So I tell people, be careful about walking into these entry-level jobs and telling people, I have the Microsoft certification, I have Cisco certifications, I have the CCNA, I have all of these, I have the 3 CompTIA certifications. I went out and got this one, and now I have 7 certifications I can present. I'm the perfect candidate for this job. And you will not get the job. Probably not. Because someone looking at that list is going to say, wow, this person knows a lot about these different technologies. They have a lot of certifications. If I hire them for the help desk, they are going to be bored out of their mind and they're going to quit in a month. And then I'm just going to have to do this all over again. This person is not the best fit for this position. Overqualification is a real thing. Nobody wants to get someone overqualified for a job. And to be fair, as I often tell people, don't ever put yourself in a position where you're the smartest one in the room. The idea of being on the help desk and being the smartest one in the room is not really a great place to be. You should be in a place where you're learning all the time. If you're finally going into your job, whatever it is in IT, and you're in a meeting and you look around the room and everybody's looking to you for the answer, you're finally in the wrong job. You've worked yourself up to the pinnacle of that job. It's time to level up and move to the next thing. You should always have some level of I don't know in IT. There should always be cases where somebody can ask you a question. You think, wow, that's a good question. I'm not sure. Let's go find out. And it's not that you'll never know. It's just you need to be in a position where you're constantly learning. Isn't moving at a help desk in a month the norm? It is not. No, you don't want people in a help desk for a month. Normally, people in help desk stay 3 to 6 months, 9 months, even a year to be able to that job. I think the first corporate help desk job I got, I was probably there about a year. But it was different. It wasn't like I was in a call center and got a headset and thank you for calling. What is your ID? What is your email address? It was none of that. It was a corporate help desk. So you get a ticket. You can call them. You can stop by their desk. You can go to a meeting where you talked about what was going to be going on the weekend. It was corporate. It's a very different help desk scenario in a corporate environment than it is in maybe a call center environment. And so you could be there for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and you're constantly learning. You're learning what the networking team is doing. You're learning what the Windows team is doing. You're learning what the Linux team is doing. You're learning what all the network is happening, all the upgrades going on. You see what the security folks are working on. You got a database team. There's a cloud technicians. There's so much going on. So your goal in the help desk is you should be a sponge. You should be learning all of this, and it's your opportunity to look at Windows team, Linux team, networking team, cloud team, database team, security team, data center team. You're looking at all these folks in all of these different departments, and you're thinking, I really like what they're doing over on networking. That's where I'd like to go next. Or the cloud team is really, that's an interesting set of technologies. I want to learn more about the cloud. So it's your place to kind of learn and direct, there's where I want to be. And at that point, you would get the certification specific to that particular interest. So if networking was an interest, once you're at the help desk, then get your CCNA. Then you can talk to the networking guys and say, I love what you're doing over here. I'd like to learn more about switching and routing and wide area networking. I've got my CCNA. Are there any positions available? Reach out to them. And they'll go, well, we don't have one now, but we think we're going to get one in 6 months or 3 months or whatever it is. And then they can slide you out of the help desk and into a position at the company. That's usually how it works. But you don't want to show up saying, I'm a perfect person for the help desk, and here are my 10 certifications. They're going to think, oh, you're never going to stay here with 10 certifications, when in reality, you probably would. These are just certs to you. You've just worked to create the certification. There's the challenge, is figuring out the right one. So I don't know if it's the case where I could tell you what your next step might be, or I could not, but it would take a lot more conversation to talk about, what are you doing now? What's your next step? What are you interested in? What jobs are available in your area? What are they asking for? It's the things that I've already mentioned. So you get to do more work. Every time someone asks me, what certification should I take next? I'm already thinking in my mind, oh, you have a lot of work to do. And let me tell you what you have to go do now. And so off you go doing the spreadsheet. And then you're able to answer the question yourself. That's the idea. You want to work through those. You just don't want to overqualify yourself before you even get that first job. That's not the situation you want to be in. I would also really recommend, in order to maybe not overqualify yourself, is take all of the things you want to learn on that help desk and start applying them to more of a home lab type scenario. Create a VM or series of VMs and run Active Directory. Create a series of VMs and run networking technologies. Load up a packet tracer, which is Cisco's simulation environment for their devices, and create some networks and build out switches and routers, just to know if you really know what's going on. But that's something that should probably happen once you get that first job in IT, and then once you're ready to redirect your efforts into a particular vertical, that's the way to do it. So that is good advice. Never take anyone's advice, but your own advice is actually very good advice. Except that we just take your advice on that one. That one. So now, would that advice really apply? Should you not take that advice because it's not my advice? Now we've got a problem. Now we're stuck. That's not going to work either. We'll figure it out. It's one of those. Maybe nothing I said made any sense. We'll find out. We'll find out as soon as you get that next job, whatever it happens to be. The reason most people, by the way, say you should get your A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus is in that order, is that the Network Plus renews the A+, the Security Plus renews Network Plus and A+. So by doing them in that order, when you pass your Security Plus, you've now got 3 years eligibility for all of the certifications, Security Plus, Network Plus, and A+. That's why I think most people say that. And that's why that triple play there of those three is a pretty good idea. Yeah, CEH does renew Security Plus, but I'm never doing a CEH course. So, and I don't mean maybe not ever. I mean never. I'm never doing a CEH course. Not going to happen. So, unfortunately, if you're planning to renew with a CEH, I'm not going to be able to help you, sadly. So bad. So close to be able to have that there. Yeah, some people skip over A+. Some people skip over Network Plus. And in fact, the thing that I just mentioned, if you happen to be in the DC area, Virginia, Maryland, or you work with a company that does a lot of national defense in the United States, national defense type work, you may be required to have a Security Plus, because in that part of the Department of Defense federal government section, the Security Plus is the minimum they want you to have. They don't care so much if you have the A Plus or Network Plus, but you must have Security Plus. So that's why it's a little different. And people who come to my site that live in that area, Security Plus may be their very first cert. It may be the one they work on as their very first cert. So you can start on Security Plus, absolutely. So that would be a good place to go. It's just once you get that, if you go then and take the Network Plus or A Plus, those two are not going to renew Security Plus. It works the other direction. So that's why. Why would I never provide CEH? Because of a number of issues that have occurred through the years. If you search in your favorite search engine 2 words, Made in America, Snowden and CEH, those two words will get you the very first link is ethical hacking organization hacked, website defaced with Edward Snowden's password. And they put it here. A lot of these articles will just put his passport. They will put his passport picture in the article. I'm surprised this one's not here. Now, this is from 2014. And by the way, this is not the first time that happened. So they didn't do a great job at securing the information that was provided to them. But perhaps even worse, they didn't provide, there it is, they didn't provide any security of your personal information. So that's the part that bothered me more, was that this information is my passport, it's my license, it's whatever they're using. That's a difficult document to replace or get a different one. And as it turns out, they weren't securing your information. You know, if their stuff got out and their test pool or whatever was released, that was breached, okay. You know, those things do happen. But in this case, your information was breached. And I can't, in any good way, tell you to pursue a certification that could potentially put your personal information at risk. Now, that was a long time ago. I think it was 2014. And the argument, and a fine argument to be made, is that, well, that was a long time ago. They've done other things with their security, and they're doing it differently. Except on the backside of this that I work on, I get to see how different organizations work. I get to see the sort of how they communicate and process things to other partners of theirs. And I've just not been pleased with how they do that. Just not an organization I'm interested in hanging out with. So I just don't do it. In many ways, it's sort of unfortunate that the one the hackers put there is the Snowden one, because there's political issues around that. And I try to be just completely non-political. We're trying to get IT jobs. The computers have no idea how you like to vote. And I feel the same way. If you're going to get a job, it doesn't really matter who you like, who you don't like in politics. The important thing is, are you able to get a job or get a better job? And ultimately, the technology you work with doesn't really care who you vote for either. So I like being right down the line with this stuff. So by having that particular passport here it's not the fact that that person is on that passport. It just makes it easier for me to search in a search engine. The idea is that somebody's passport was made public. It doesn't matter whose it was. That's scary to me. That's not what I'm trying to avoid, is that piece of it. So that's why I really have no interest whatsoever at ever doing anything relating to CEH, but there's plenty of other things out there to work on from a security perspective. Lots. CompTIA has some great security certifications. There's tons of other security certifications in the industry, and even higher level certs, the CISSP from ISC Squared. You know, the ISC Squared certifications are well respected in the industry. It doesn't even have to be the CISSP as long as you have that ISC Squared next to it. So that's the important part, is finding a certification that makes sense for what you're trying to do, and then finding one that in the industry is well respected. And I think we're in pretty good shape with that. That's all good to be able to make those happen. It's a shame that they got attacked in that way. It's a shame that anybody's information was posted. In this case, he's not really going to need his passport, though, is he? Probably not. I don't know. I don't think he renewed it. As I look back, I'm pretty sure he didn't renew that passport, so that may not even be an issue. But there it is. That's the reason I don't do CEH. Just see if you can find the right cert for you. And in the big problem I have now is that if you look through the exam objectives for CEH, actually pretty good cert. If you take all of that other stuff out of the equation, CEH, that's a pretty good group of things you should know from a security perspective. I like their exam objectives, but like anything in life, it's about the execution. And you have to be able to execute and do it right and do it well. And maybe in the meantime, also avoid my passport being made public. So that's why. That's the way it works. The videos for this study group are available immediately afterwards. As soon as I hit the stop button, it churns away a little bit, and then a few minutes later, it's available on YouTube. So it's just automatic. If it's freezing, it's your connection to YouTube that's doing it. You don't have a direct connection to me to be able to do that. So that's where that comes from. CompTIA is well recognized. Find it, and as you're going through and looking at jobs in your area and you're making that spreadsheet, you're writing down all the certifications they'd like you to have. You will run across certifications you've never seen before. Like, what is that one? So more research is involved. But you will often find niches where it's a healthcare, manufacturing, transportation. There may be certifications that they would prefer you have rather than things you might have heard from that are more mainstream. So it's a good one to step through. That process is a good one to step through because you start to learn what's going on in this industry. What are employers looking for? What certifications tend to have the buzzword, and what are top of mind for the hiring managers? You start to get top of mind for those. So that's really where that comes from. If you're someone who is in that process, I would highly recommend going through the process of really understanding what the different options are. I'm very curious about this. This is somewhat of an aside in the chat, but I'm getting a number of these most recently. Alex in the chat room with the 500 Argentine peso super chat. I had a Colombian peso just on the last study group, or on one. I think it was a super thanks. I think it was on a video earlier in the week. And this one is $3.31 worth, which, by the way, fantastic. Thank you, Alex, for the super chat. Alex says, got my Security Plus last month. Your vids are a really good part of my study material. Thanks a lot, Professor. You're absolutely welcome. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for your support. Others, the ones I got were, the one I got earlier in the month was the Colombian peso. And I think it was 20,000 Colombian pesos or 2,000 or something like that. It ended up being the translation that was like 43 American cents. And I wasn't sure whether it was a super thanks that was really thanking me, or if it was like a bad tip that you would leave somebody at a restaurant. Was it? They said nice things, so that was good. So I took it as a compliment because her currency is just a weird, crazy thing. And I get it. And for some people, 500 Argentinian pesos may be a good chunk of change. So I don't scoff at any of this. I think anytime you're reaching out to me and saying thank you, I'm saying you're welcome right back. So thank you also, Alex, for that. And congratulations on your Security Plus. That's a great cert to have. Sherry in the chat room with the $19.99 super chat passed my Network Plus on Monday night. Fantastic. Congratulations on your new Network Plus. Just wanted to quickly thank you and pay it forward so you can keep helping all the future IT professionals. 13 out of 10 content. Gotta love it. Thank you so much, Sherry. I sure appreciate that. First, I love hearing the stories of you passing your exams. There's really nothing more motivating to me than to hear that. The only thing that's probably more motivating is the $19.99 super chat part. It helps. It's really not the motivational part, but it is nice that we can keep lights on and we can keep our internet connection running and we can keep doing all of those things. So thank you so much for not only letting me know you passed your Network Plus, which that's the part I want to hear, but we also can keep it going for everyone else, which is so incredibly important for what we are doing. It's an odd business that I've created here on the internet. It's a number of different things. I sort of stuck in a box. We shook up the box, and now this experience is doing whatever it's doing. We're just sort of riding the wave and just keeping it going at this point. And so far, it could not be going better. Thanks to you. Thanks to all of you who are watching the videos. You are purchasing the course notes. You're investing in the practice exams. You're doing all of those things. I think it's a good win-win. I want you to get that job or get that better job, and that's our goal. So thank you, Sherry, for the $19.99 super chat. We sure appreciate it, and it does help, and it does go a long way. And I realize a number of you out there, I was a poor college student at one time. I get it. You don't have time to contribute. There's no money in there to contribute. You're already helping by, one, watching the videos. You're already helping by clicking the thumbs up. You're already helping by subscribing to the channel. So there are things you can do that cost nothing that remarkably, you don't get to see it, but I'm telling you here on the back end where I'm talking directly to YouTube, I have my own YouTube person that I could talk to. That's crazy. And they are bringing me in on betas and new things that they are doing. That's crazy. Was not expecting that when I started this crazy experiment. So I'm able to do that because you are telling YouTube this is a channel we think is valuable. So just doing that, even though you may be clicking thumbs up and thinking, well, this isn't doing much, but okay, I'll click the thumbs up, actually does quite a bit. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. I'm sure it's been asked already today, usually 3 or 4 or 5 times. Any update on the Network Plus Practice Exams PDF? As I've mentioned, for those of you that have followed me on the other courses that I've done, I have a series of books that I produce for a number of these certifications. I have course notes. I have my audio course. I have my success bundle. I have my exam hacks ebook. But the one product for A+, I have 2 practice exams books. For Security Plus, I have a practice exams book. I don't have them here. My success bundle is here with the USB drive, but I don't have any of the other practice exams books. The one course I don't have practice exams for is Network Plus. What is up with that? Where is it? It's really about timing. I started writing practice exams when Security Plus was out. I made Security Plus practice exams. And then the next set of exams that I updated was A+, and so I created A+ practice exams for that. Next on my list would then therefore be practice exams for Network Plus. That makes sense. There are not any yet. The official word on those is I would love to do a practice exams book for Network Plus. It's something that I would like to have available to you sometime in the coming months. That's as detailed as I could be at this point. There's just no other timing that I can put on that. I absolutely have every intention of doing this. Like I said, November is going to be a little chaotic for me. So I don't know how much we'll get done in November, but hopefully we'll get started on that. It usually takes about 3 months just to write one of those practice exams books from scratch. We're talking about 380, 400 pages of questions and answers. And each one of them has to be written, then it has to be rewritten, and then it has to be edited and tweaked, and then finally it's ready for publishing. So I just don't have one. And you're right, Beaver in the chat room, it's soon, trademark. It's coming soon, whatever that is. Hopefully we'll be able to get one out sooner rather than later, but I'll also give you the idea behind this is that I would have it in a number of months. It might not happen. We might never see one. Wouldn't that be sad? But my intention, my absolute intention is to create one. I think it would be great. I think it's something we need. There's obviously people that are asking for it, so I'm working on it. I literally am working on it. I can show you. Let's see if I have. Nope, I'm not going to show you what I got so far. But there is work already going into it. So this is not a pipe dream. It's not, will it ever start? No, we've already, as they say, broken ground on the Network Plus practice exams. It's just I have a very small shovel. So it's going to take some time to get that going. Now, to be fair, up until now, I've been creating A+ videos. The A+ series has just finished its update process. Finally, I can move over and start working at a different level on different projects. And this is one of the projects I would love to work on right now. I just have no idea time-wise how much it's going to take. So we'll see. As we get closer to the end of it, I'll have a better idea what timing is. And I don't mind you asking. Just, everybody asks every day. I have no problem answering. So when I know something different and you ask, I will tell you the updates and where the differences are. So that's what I would recommend, is just keep asking. And you're not going to bother me. It's not going to get on my nerves or anything. That's just, of course you'd like to know. And of course I'd like to tell you. So I'll tell you as much as I know. It's probably just not the answer you want until it's finally released. And then everybody's happy with that. Question there. I like the jokes questions. At what layers does a multi-layer switch operate? How about multiples of those and multiple layers? It's funny that if you look in, and I'm not sure if the exam objectives for Network Plus still do this. Let's have a look at the exam objectives, because you brought up a good question in my mind, is what does CompTIA call a layer 3 switch? I'd like to find out. In their world, they call it, I love this, a layer 3 capable switch. So they're using a terminology. First, your question was good because you used the terminology that was in a previous version of the exam, a multi-layer switch, which, by the way, is not what we call them. In the CompTIA exam objectives, it's a layer 3 capable switch, also not what we call them. In the industry, we call them a layer 3 switch. I don't know why we hop around all these words. Why don't you just call it what it is? It's a layer 3 switch. The layer 3 capable switch, what layer does it operate at? Who is buried in Grant's tomb? It's a good question. I think the problem with, and for those of you that are new to the live stream and new to the inside joke with layer 3 switches, is inside of a layer 3 switch, you can think of there are two entities living under the same house. There's two things running inside of the same chassis. Same power, but inside that one container, that one U high or whatever size that rack that you're putting into the rack, that switch, there's software inside of that is switching at layer 2 and is routing at layer 3. Well, instead of calling it a router or a rich, because there were actually at one time we called things brouters, instead of screwing the names up like that, at least they didn't do that. But instead of saying it's a switch and a router in the same box, instead of saying that, we call it's a layer 3 switch. The problem for those of us learning this technology, it is not switching at layer 3. It is not routing at layer 2. You could have just as effectively called it a layer 2 router, but it's not routing at layer 2. It's switching at layer 2. It's not switching at layer 3. It's routing at layer 3, because switches are layer 2 devices and routers are layer 3 devices. But as a shortcut, we simply in the industry call it a layer 3 switch, just so that you know it is a switch, but inside of it's also a router. Now, if that's the definition, for all of you that have at home a wireless router for your internet connection, that's a layer 3 switch. There you go. We've all got one. It's in the house. The layer 3 switch is in the house. That's what it is. It's a router and a switch in the same box. That's a layer 3 switch. And the reason I am so kind of negative on you being able to call it a layer 3 switch, the reason I say there's no such thing as a layer 3 switch is functionally it's switching at layer 2 and routing at layer 3. So therefore, it's not switching at layer 3, which the name sounds like. But the problem is, this is our Network Plus certification. Many of the people that are working towards earning the certification have never worked on a network before, and simply describing something in a way that immediately is converse to what the thing does seems to be confusing. So I kind of overly emphasize the fact that a layer 3 switch is a switch and a router in the same device. It's not switching at layer 3. It's not routing at layer 2. I overdo it, and we make fun of it, and we have this sort of inside joke that there's no such thing as a layer 3 switch because of that. I want to make sure that you understand really what that device is. And then once you get your Network Plus and you get into the workplace and somebody points at that and goes, we need to install a layer 3 switch right here, you'll know exactly what they're talking about. And you'll be able to go, oh, absolutely. Let's get a layer 3 switch in there. I'll configure the switch VLANs. We'll have the router team get in and configure the routing, the static routing inside the device. Is that what we want to do? Great. Let's do that. That's a layer 3 switch. It's beautiful. All the switches I have in my studio, and I have some, I wonder if we can see them. We kind of can't see them in this picture. Let's see if I have. No, you really can't. I'd have to kind of move out of the way because there's a rack down here, UPS. There's audio. Can't even see it for me. There's a headphone distribution that I no longer use that need to be pulled out of here. And you can't see it, but just above that is a switch right next to the voice system. I've got all kinds of compressors and things in there. I don't have a switch over here either. But the switch that I have in here, I have layer 3 switches everywhere because I might want to route something. And one way to route it is through a layer 3 switch. I don't have to install a separate router. So there's huge benefits to having a layer 3 switch. It's a great device to have. Costs you a little bit more money than just a layer 2 switch, which of course is labeled correctly in the exam objectives, layer 2 switch right there. But it does not have the same thing on the layer 3 side. So that's why the joke is funny. And I do get people sometimes sending me a message saying, I saw on your study group, you said there's no such thing as a layer 3 switch, but here's a link over to Cisco's website where they have layer 3 switches. Yes, it's true. They do exist. But we say they don't because it's not a real thing. It is well put, JB. It is the turducken of networking. We just need one more thing to wrap around it, don't we? We just need one more thing to have right there. You know, I used to work at Palo Alto Networks. Our firewalls would have on the front of them 24 ports, and you could configure the ports as layer 3 interfaces, layer 2 interfaces, and layer 1 interfaces. So there's your turducken of all three put together, is having a firewall that can operate at all of those different layers across multiple interfaces on that device. You could plug it in anywhere and make it work. You could plug it in as layer 1. You could plug it in as layer 2. You could plug it in as layer 3. So there's a good example of a device. Is it a layer 3 firewall? That was a layer 7 firewall. So that doesn't work at that point. The whole layer 3 switch nomenclature doesn't work at that point. We just have to deal. It's a next generation firewall at that point. I guess the next generation name kind of stuck. It's now been a next generation firewall for 10 years. More than that. It's been a next generation firewall for 15 years. So that's the way it works. Let's talk about layer 8 switches. That's the one that your boss won't purchase because you don't have budget. And that's where the layer 8 comes from. They always talk about there's the politics is layer 8. Your problem at your whatever your struggles you have at your company, that's layer 8. The change control meeting, that's layer 8. And we always have problems at layer 8. If we can solve those layer 8 issues, the rest of the entire stack will work properly. Layer 8's a tough one. That's a difficult one to work through. If you are very good at working through layer 8, you'll do pretty good in IT. You'll do pretty good anywhere, really. There's always going to be politics. There's always going to be corporate culture. You can't get away from it. I fought corporate culture in my first job, not realizing that there was no fight. You're going to lose every time. You cannot beat the corporate culture animal. A very smart manager of mine took me aside and said, the way that you become successful is not to fight that system. It's to figure out how to work with it. They can continue to be inefficient and uninformed and play their little games back and forth. You just be better than them. You just take it to a different level. Don't let them bother you. Just do what you need to do, but find a way to work with them. And you don't have to get involved. You don't have to get in there with the pigs and flop around and get all dirty with them, but you do have to figure out how to call them, how to work with them, how to on this side of the fence, how do you work with those folks over there? And he was right. The more you can let a lot of the nonsense go right off your back. That's the water off your back like a duck. The more you can let all of that just, okay, well, that's good, but how do we make this thing happen? It all gets much easier when you can do that. As soon as you stop taking things personally in the workplace, I think it works better. There was a need when I was young and I was in IT and I was ready to go and I was leveling up and I'm thinking, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to make the world a better place starting at this meeting with these people. And that was probably not the best approach to make that happen. And then as soon as I got more advice and learned a little more about what's going on, sort of take a step back and sort of view, then you become a little more knowledgeable in what other people are trying to do. And the thing that you want to do is to make that person successful. Not what you think success is, what they think success is. So you have to now figure out what motivates everyone in the room and then figure out how you can make these things happen by making them successful. Ultimately, you're going to be successful. You're smart. You're in IT. You're going to move up anyway. A lot of people aren't in that position. They're managers. They're vice presidents. They're working in accounting. They're doing other things. They have their own path. They have their own direction. They have their own goals. But how could that person in accounting now be better or happier doing what they're doing in accounting? Well, here's the tools I can give you to make that happen. And I can make that happen if we can just get this change control done. If I can just get this budget approved, if I can just get this equipment in the rack, your situation is going to be so much better and you're going to be successful. That's how you have to approach it. IT tends to approach things as, this has to be implemented because it has to be implemented. There's a security need. This particular system is out of date and we have to, nobody cares. Nobody in the rest of the organization cares but IT about that. But if you can somehow explain to them, by upgrading this, your access to that database is going to be twice as fast, or you'll be able to have your spreadsheet will be able to be twice as big as what it is today, or you'll be able to create the links that you need to those other databases so that you can fill that information in automatically. That's how you have to work in IT. It's very different. So that's what I think is probably the best approach. Is IT tends to be very much in our own world, and we don't often kind of look to see how we can make the business a better business. But ultimately, that's the most valuable part of IT, is becoming that translator between the technical world and the world that needs to get the spreadsheet done. And if you can make that connection, the better you are at making that connection, the better a technologist you're going to be, ironically enough. That's true story. That is true. That's how it usually works. Sort of take state and local government out of the equation, but that's pretty much how it works. Government's its own animal, one that I don't even pretend to understand every nuance of, but I've worked a lot with government, federal government, and state and local government agencies, and sometimes tend to be a little bit different in that scenario. So other questions. We'll take some more questions. I'm sort of at the end of my time, but I want to kind of fit some other pieces into this mix. I want to be sure. There were a number of super chats that I missed in the last live stream that did not appear in my chat, which is why I missed them. And I saw them. I have a way to go back afterwards and look at the report of all the super chats that came in. So I can apologize if I missed any in the study group. Not my intention. Sometimes it just never appears. Maybe they were able to correct that particular issue, but that's another one where maybe it's one that can help a little bit. So this is the case. If a lot of people were talking about this in the chat room about NAT, network address translation. It's almost a mystery until you start tracking the way it operates. And I think if you are trying to track things as they go, the best thing you could probably do is to create a network diagram for yourself and understand how your home router, that wireless router we were talking about, is doing a lot of NAT. It's doing a lot of network address translation. The Cisco world, they refer to that style of network address translation as PAT, as a port address translation, which is another example of complicating something that shouldn't be that complicated. PAT is a type of NAT. So when I talk about network address translation, it incorporates every type of network address translation, including what Cisco tends to call PAT, which is the same type of network address translation we have at home, where our house has an IP address. Really, it's the router at our house has an IP address, and that is the only IP address seen by the rest of the world. The way that it's able to somehow get through that router into your machine, which is different than your tablet, which is different than your phone, is that we're able to do all of that because there's a table inside of your router that's keeping track of where's the phone, where's the tablet, where's your computer. It has different IP addresses internal to your network where those are, and it just has a diagram. It just has a list at the door. Oh, where are you going? Oh, you're going to PC? Oh, you need to go to this IP address. There, changed it. You go over there. Next. Oh, you need to go to the tablet? Yeah, you need to go to a different IP address. Hold on, let me change it. There you go. All right, it's gone off to the tablet. Next. So the bouncer at the door is the one doing the address translation. And they have a nice long, big list for your router at home. The address translation table may be 5 devices. It might be 10 devices. On my network, it's probably 30 devices. But there's a limited number that it has to keep track of. In your corporate environment, you have to be able to keep track of thousands of devices. And if you start looking at specifications, let's look at a router specification, and I'll give you an idea of where that's coming from. Am I in the wrong system? I am. I'm now on the wrong computer. Let's flip it over to the other computer, shall we? And have the keyboard work on the other computer. There we go. I'm hitting the wrong buttons on my screen. I have a keyboard that will support multiple systems, so sometimes it ends up going over this keyboard. You don't see it. Let's see. This keyboard, there it is a Logitech keyboard. It has 3 buttons on here through Bluetooth because it's wireless. I can connect to different devices. So I was just connecting over to my laptop and it was doing nothing on my screen. Let's go look at that scenario. I was going to look at a firewall. Let's just go to Palo Alto Networks because, you know, they only have the best firewalls in the world. So let's have a look at what they're doing. I know these people. I used to work with these people. I should go look at Nir. It's Nir Zuck, the guy who came up with the idea of the next generation firewall and implemented it and created Palo Alto Networks. Let's have a look at their products. I'm going to look at next generation firewalls. I've not done this in a long time, so I'm not sure where they're keeping all of their different model selections. Let's look at a hardware next generation firewall. There's their new firewalls. I want a spec sheet. So let's just grab one. Let's look at the PA3400, sort of a mid-size. Read the data sheet. View the hardware architecture. I do want to view the data sheet. And let's see if it shows me in the data sheet, because I want detailed specifications of exactly what the firewall supports, how many sessions it supports, VPN throughput. Look at these monster numbers on these devices. They are amazing. But it doesn't look like it has all the details. I'm looking for NAT table sizes. It doesn't look like that's in here. But I bet if I went over to additional features, I bet they have other things I can pull up. It's probably the place I grab them is on the intranet, which I don't have access to anymore. But I'll go into the manual itself has the details. So in their manual, they will list out, here's the size of the NAT table that you can have. So it might be 10,000 entries. It might be 25,000 entries. So their NAT tables are enormous because it's just a big bouncer at the door watching the packets come in and saying, oh, you need to go to Anne in accounting, her phone. All right, let me go through my list. Oh, here it is. It's entry number 4,720. Oh, that's her internal IP address. Let me overwrite that. There you go. Off you go to Ann's accounting and to her smartphone. So it works exactly the same in a next generation firewall, in a software-based firewall, in the router that you have at home. The NATing works exactly the same way with exactly the same tables and in many ways exactly the same configuration options. The NAT that you do at home, exactly the same NAT you do in the enterprise. There's no difference whatsoever. So don't get wrapped up in the idea that of that. And by the way, you could spend days going through NAT because there are hairpin NATs, U-turn NATs, port-based NATs or PATs. There's source NATing. There's destination NATing. And so there's all kinds of different configuration options for each one of those. If you are ever wanting to get into that level of detail, again, Palo Alto Networks on their community side in their resources tab on their site has tons of papers that you can go through. And they have a great paper just on network address translation. I don't work here anymore, but I know it sounds like I do, but I don't. They just have great content. Their tech articles, a lot of these are marketing articles, but they're tech articles that I think you can still get access to on the support side, have great articles on NAT that give diagrams. They take you through how it works. They got, follow the line to go through everything they're doing. Fantastic. One that was real popular. Let me see if I can find it before I start talking about what it was. Is one that kind of describes the packet flow on a Palo Alto Networks firewall. I refer to it as a day in the life of a packet because that's what it is. That's how you find it. Type in Palo Alto Networks day in the life of a packet. It takes you through the entire firewall, and this is it. If you want to know how a next generation firewall works, that's it. They have created a block diagram. The packet comes in. It has an ingress process. I wonder if there's a better picture of this that I could pull up. Not in this. There's a PDF of it somewhere that you can grab, and the graphics are better. The graphics guy must have been out this day. Did some information. It pulls in the packet. It looks at what's in the packet. It then begins processing the packet. And what's interesting is that there's a process within the packet permissions and forwarding that include a NAT policy lookup. They have a big list. They have a policy list very similar to setting up rules in a firewall. They have rules for NATing. So if the data coming inbound is within this IP address range, NAT it over to this network. If it's coming in on a different IP address range or with different applications or with different port numbers, send it over to this particular range. You have very detailed NAT policies that you can create. So in this big firewall that's doing application identification and content inspection and HTTPS decryption, it's doing tons of things here. There's the SSL proxy decrypting the packet. Within the process of doing all of that, it has extensive network address translation lookups that it can do, and then sends it over to the firewall to actually do firewall policies. It can get very complicated. It can get extensive to be able to do that. Have I had any of their certs? Well, when I worked there as a systems engineer, I was required to be a Palo Alto Networks SE, certified PAN SE. I forget what the name of the certification is now. That's how long away it's been. I should probably look at their website. But absolutely, I was required to be certified on the Palo Alto Networks side. For us, being a systems engineer of the device, we already knew how the product worked anyway. We got extensive training from the people you see on their website. So we would go to training, and Near would be able to tell us, here's what we're doing with the firewall. Lee Cleric would come in. That's the guy who's on the left side. And he's the person in charge of setting the direction for what the firewall does. It's feature set. So Lee would come and we talked to him, and then we talked to the developers themselves and learn all about the firewall. And then at that point, we'd go take the certification. We already knew everything we needed to know anyway. We didn't have to study very much, but Palo Alto Networks Certified SE was a good thing to have in your pocket. And it's a fun firewall to support. If you, it's kind of an odd thing to say, isn't it? That this is a fun firewall to support, but it really is. When you're working with a technology like that, at the time and even today is so cutting edge in what it can do. It's so detailed in what it's able to accomplish, and it does it so well. It's one of those rare situations. I worked for a lot of different technology companies. I worked for Network General. I worked for NetScout. I worked for Palo Alto Networks. I worked for Network Associates. There were so many things about a product, and you know, when you ever plug in a new product and you start working with it and you run across a bug, you run across a problem, the system reboots, there's all these problems with it. From an SE, from a technical person's perspective, having something like a Palo Alto Networks firewall that you'd plug it in and it just worked. It ran. It did exactly what they said it does. All the features that you were looking for were in the product. It was a very different environment at a technical level working with that than working with things I might have worked with in the past, where you take it into a customer and say, here's this product you were asking about. Whatever you do, don't use the feature number 5. Just don't touch that one. Everything else is fine, but don't do that thing. You know, we told you it does that. Just don't do it. You'll be better off. Just don't touch that part. Everything else you can touch, but don't touch that part. But the Palo Alto Networks firewall was one, what do you want it to do? I'll make this do whatever you want. And it did it. That's the part that was crazy. It just did it. We should all hope to get to that point where we are working for a company that has products that do exactly what they say it does. It just makes your life so much better as a technologist. I would say, though, working for products that didn't work very well or that had a bad reputation in the industry can also be valuable too. You learn a lot when you are put into those positions. And you may think to yourself, this is a bad situation to be in. When I look back, I think, well, I learned a lot. It was a bad situation to be in, but I learned a lot being in that situation. And sometimes you are in those, but you'll figure it out and you'll go to the next job and you just keep leveling up. Just keep leveling up, get a job or get a better job. That's your goal. That's what you should be working towards. Well, that brings us to the end of this Network Plus study group, but we got a lot more this month. I've got, of course, we're always in our Discord at professormesser.com/Discord. Stop on by, say hello. There's lots of us in there all the time talking about who knows what, but we've got a general chat along with A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, and other things as well. There's always something going on. We'll have a good time over there. And come back next week, next Wednesday, a week from today, we do our Security Plus study group. I haven't even written the questions yet. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. It's a mystery for everybody. Come on back and see what questions did we end up with. That's always a good study group as well. We'd love to have you stop by for that one. There's lots that going on here. If you ever have a question or something you'd like from me, always hit me on my website, on the Contact Us link, or any of our social media links. We love doing these live streams. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us for the first half and for our after show. And we will see you next time on the Network Plus study group. Thanks, everybody.